Chapter 1240. In an instant the entire octagonal tower was empty. All the forces returned to their sex and gave the order not to provoke Yi Chun. Going against an emperor's throne powerhouse, no one dared to think about it. Not to mention that he killed one of their disciples. Even if he destroyed their entire sect, they would not dare to make a sound. At the peak of the octagonal tower, the skinny old Pan looked at the sorry figures of the people, and the corner of his eyes was slightly wet. Going against the world with your own strength. Dong Li Imperial Lord, the person you wanted me to wait for has finally arrived. At this point, he looked at the sky. Old fart, you might be hiding somewhere and laughing. In the far west of Zhongzhou, on a crowded street in the capital of a small dynasty in the secular world. I'll kill you, you old fart. You stinking beggar, how dare you peek at my young master's woman? You must be blind to know who my young master is. A few strong servants were currently punching and kicking a sloppy Taoist priest while cursing him. Ouch, someone's dead, someone's dead. The slovenly Taoist priest curled up on the ground and covered his head with his hands. He screamed like a pig being slaughtered. At this moment, the young man with a fan who had been watching from the side interrupted. All right, it's enough to teach him a lesson. Don't kill him. Old fart, you're lucky. The few servants spat at the slovenly Taoist priest on the ground and left with the young man with a fan. After they left, a girl with a birthmark walked over and helped the slovenly Taoist priest up. Master, are you happy now? The slovenly Taoist priest chuckled. That brat killed the Jade Lake holy leader. Proves that I have good taste. Then Brother Wushuang, the girl with the birthmark, hesitated to speak. It's still not enough. The slovenly Taoist priest stared at a middle-aged woman's perky butt and said while wiping his saliva, Di Xuanca and Jiang Juexian won't let this go. This is that brat's death. Zhongzhou Eastern Region. The Eastern Region was different from the Northern Region. If most of the forces in the Northern Region were made up of aristocratic families and sects, then the Eastern Region was a vast territory ruled by many dynasties. In the Eastern Region, among the hundreds of countries, the Great Yin Imperial Dynasty ruled over one world. It was like a giant that ruled over all countries. At this moment, in the Great Yin Imperial Dynasty, there was a huge palace with richly carved beams and painted raft. It was majestic and imposing. It was like a tide of luck. In the depths of the palace there was a huge hall. The entrance was heavily guarded in black armor. They checked everyone entering and exiting without daring to relax. Countless golden light spots were floating in the huge hall. These golden light spots were all left by the Great Yin Yang Dynasty. With these so-called spirit imprints, the Great Yin Imperial Dynasty could know whether these people were alive or dead in time. If one looked closely, they would discover that there were more than 10 dazzling golden spots at the top of the hall. 8 of them were the divine soul imprints left behind by the 8 princes of the Great Yin Imperial Dynasty. Several eunuchs with restrained auras walked slowly in the hall with lanterns in their hands. They checked every soul mark. Suddenly, when a person passed by the highest point, he looked up at a soul imprint in front of him. Cracks had appeared on it. Crack, the divine soul brand shattered with a loud bang. Not good. This sudden scene shocked everyone. The old eunuch who led the group said in shock, This is Emperor Yang Emperor's soul. Quick, report to the Emperor. Something big happened. A commotion broke out in the silent hall. The old eunuch, who was the leader of the group, rushed out in a hurry. And on the peak of a lofty mountain in the Great Yin Imperial Dynasty, a figure dressed in a purple and gold robe sat cross-legged. The space around him squirmed as he breathed, as if it could not bear the weight. Boom! The space in front of him suddenly distorted. Then, a terrifying crack appeared, and a suffocating aura spread out. Brother Xian Ku, my son is dead. In an instant, a figure slowly walked out of the crack. That person had long golden hair that seemed to be burning with divine fire. He was tall and burly, and his eyes were as sharp as 2 heavenly swords. Brother Juetian, my son Yang Yang is also dead. The man in the purple and gold robe didn't move. He looked down and said lightly, including Jiuchuan, 2 of my sons died at his hands. If there were important officials of the Great Yin Imperial Dynasty and the Great Qi Imperial Dynasty present, they would have recognized the 2 as the Emperor of the Great Yin Imperial Dynasty, Xian Ku, and the Emperor of the Great Qi Imperial Dynasty, Jiang Juetian. From the Jade Pool, this person killed not only the 5 great geniuses, but also that old guy Feng Baiyu. The projection of the Emperor of the Great Qi Imperial Dynasty, Jiang Juetian, was like a high and mighty god. His eyes were gloomy. This kid is growing too fast. You should have killed him back then. Otherwise, this wouldn't have happened. That kid is not simple. The Emperor of the Great Yin Imperial Dynasty, Xian Ku, narrowed his eyes. There seemed to be lightning flashing through them. That day, he withstood my palm and entered the Emperor's throne realm in just a month. You, Di Xian Ku, are afraid? Jiang Juetian sneered and said, I received news that the kid is looking for the 5 people on the ghost ship. You and I can't escape from this, especially you. What do you plan to do? Brother Juetian, I think it's time for us to start the plan. A black light flashed in Di Xian Ku's eyes. Should we start it early? Jiang Juetian's eyes narrowed, and he said in a low voice, You and Ying have reached an agreement. Di Xian Ku avoided the topic. But before that, we have to get rid of this kid first, lest he becomes a stumbling block for us. That person from the academy isn't here. This is a godsend opportunity. Even with Ying, it's not enough. Jiang Juetian's eyes flashed. Don't forget, that old guy from the North Sea Dragon Subduing Hall and the Emperor of the Great Xia have been eyeing us. Especially that old thing from the Sword Hut. He's been trying to get in our way. The leader of the Sword Hut, Di Xian Ku sneered. He's just a rat on the street. Moreover, his successor dared to draw his sword against the sky. He's already been punished, that's good too. Jiang Juetian pondered for a while and left quietly. A faint voice came from the void, that kid must die. Don't let me down. Following the death of the Jade Lake sacred leader, the tens of thousands of people who came to watch the ceremony were shocked. They witnessed a scene that had never happened in the ancient barren world for 1,000 years. Slaughtering geniuses like pigs and dogs, fighting the Jade Lake sacred ground alone, killing many 9 revolution martial saints, and finally killing the Jade Lake sacred leader. When this news was spread through various means, the entire Zhongzhou and even the ancient barren world were shocked. In the entire ancient barren world, emperors' throne powerhouses were extremely rare. Those who truly stood at the peak of this world were rarely seen in 1,000 years. However, an emperor's throne powerhouse had fallen. How could this not shock everyone? He killed the Jade Lake sacred leader. Who is this Yi Chen? Why have I never heard of him before? I heard that he's around 20 years old. I can't believe that he's at the Emperor's throne at such a young age. After all, whether it's the Great Yin Sovereign Lord or the Jade Lake Sacred Leader, they're all old monsters that have lived for thousands of years. It's too terrifying. From now on, the situation in the ancient barren world will change. In an instant, countless people discussed animatedly, and countless powers were terrified because this piece of news was truly too shocking. End of this chapter. Chapter 1241. Meanwhile, in the Jade Lake Sacred Lands Jade God Valley, everyone was silent after Yi Chen killed the Jade Lake Sacred Leader with 2 slashes. Everyone looked up to him. Yi Chen was carrying his sleeping daughter. He heaved a sigh of relief after sensing that she was fine. His gaze then landed on the tens of thousands of people below. As he swept his gaze across, be it the powerhouses of the Haotian sword sect or the old monsters of the Dongfang family, they all lowered their heads and knelt on one knee. Their voices shook the sky. Greetings, Emperor Yi. Greetings, Emperor Yi. Even the remaining powerhouses of the Jade Lake Sacred Land could not help but lower their heads. They led all the disciples to bow to Yi Chen. Brother Yi, I can't compare to you. Shi Qianhan, who was in the crowd, sighed from the bottom of his heart. Then, he bowed and cupped his fists. Greetings, Emperor Yi. Greetings, Emperor Yi. The great Xia dynasty's imperial daughter, Hua Qianren, bowed. Rumble. The originally deathly silent valley instantly erupted with thunderous cheers that shook the sky. Yi Chen's gaze stopped on the Jade Lake sacred leader. A faint, killing intent flashed through his eyes. His daughter was trapped in the Jade Lake sacred land. If he had not arrived in time, the consequences would have been unimaginable. As if sensing his killing intent, the people of the Jade Lake sacred land immediately prostrated themselves on the ground. Their faces were filled with fear, and they were in danger. Lin Lan, who was below, braced herself and stood up. She knelt heavily before him and begged, Yi Chen, please don't kill them. Give me a reason not to kill them? Yi Chen looked down at her from above. His eyes were so cold that there was no emotion in them. Lin Lan's heart sank and she could not help but smile bitterly. You killed almost all of the upper echelons of the Jade Lake sacred land. Most of the remaining disciples didn't do anything to you. Have you heard of the saying that if you don't remove the roots, the grass will grow again? A mocking smirk appeared at the corner of Yi Chen's lips. He looked at everyone coldly. Can you guarantee that no one among the tens of thousands of people below will harbor hatred and try to take revenge on me in the future? The people who were swept by his gaze trembled, and their souls almost left their bodies. Lin Lan was speechless. Indeed, she could not guarantee it. In reality, even she did not know if she hated Yi Chen. After all, Yi Chen had destroyed her sect. Imperial Lord Yi. At this moment, a figure flashed over from afar. It was the Peak Master of Violet Lotus Peak. At this moment, she was carrying a woman wrapped in white cloth in her arms. Blood faintly seeped through the white cloth. Yi Chen glanced over and seemed to have recognized something. A hint of pity eventually flashed through the depths of his cold eyes. Brother Yi, Miss Mu is dead. Shi Qianhan's lips moved slightly as he whispered, before she died, she asked me to tell you that she has let you down. Yi Chen remained silent. The Violet Lotus Peak Master approached from afar and knelt heavily on the ground, as if he had aged dozens of years. Sovereign Lord Yi, the disciples of the Jade Pool are all innocent. Please show mercy. At this point, she couldn't help but shed tears. We're willing to cripple our own cultivation and disband the Jade Lake sacred ground. Hearing this, everyone's expression changed, especially the remaining experts of the Jade Lake Holy Land. After saying that, she gently put down Mu Kaiwei, who was in her arms, and then resolutely pierced her own dantian in front of everyone. 1,000 years of bitter cultivation was lost in an instant. Master! Lin Lan burst into tears. No one spoke. There was only numbness. This was the outcome of being a loser. If Yi Chen was the one who failed, it would not be as simple as sacrificing his own cultivation base. Yi Chen swept his gaze across the remaining 5 martial saint elders of the Jade Lake sacred ground. The 5 of them were initially hesitant. However, after meeting Yi Chen's cold gaze, they did not dare to resist and obediently pierced their own dantian. If they did not sacrifice their own cultivation base, they would die now. There was no doubt about that. The Violet Lotus Peak Master, who had crippled her own cultivation base, instantly aged dozens of years. She looked like a haggard old woman as she stood up and silently looked at the tens of thousands of Jade Lake disciples below. I hereby announce that the Jade Lake sacred ground is officially disbanded. With Lin Lan's support, she trembled and said, "Don't be angry and don't hate. This incident was caused by the Jade Lake sacred ground's own destruction." The tens of thousands of Jade Lake sacred ground disciples looked at each other speechlessly. If the Jade Lake sacred ground had not imprisoned Yi Chen's daughter, if they had not stopped Yi Chen from meeting her, if the Jade Lake sacred master had not plotted against Yi Chen's daughter, how could this have happened? Go home. After the Violet Lotus Peak Master finished her last sentence, she could no longer stand steadily. She was on her last breath. The tens of thousands of Jade Lake disciples looked at Yi Chen by instinct. After seeing that the latter did not react, a few bold ones led the way and left in fear. Yi Chen acted as if he did not see it. Only then did the remaining people have the courage to push and leave the valley. Along the way, someone tried to empty the Jade Lake sacred ground, but he was killed on the spot by Xiao He, who had followed him all the way. As for the tens of thousands of outsiders who came to watch, they did not dare to breathe loudly as they watched this scene silently. They could only sigh endlessly. Even a towering tree could not escape the fate of collapsing. When a tree falls, the monkeys scatter. That was the cruel truth of the cultivation world. Thank you, Emperor Yi. The Violet Lotus Peak Master, who was on her last breath, looked at Yi Chen gratefully. She then held Lin Lan's hand and said, "Lan, promise me that you'll send your senior sister Mu's body back to the Tianfeng Sea area and bury it beside her mother's grave." With that, she passed away. "Master," Lin Lan cried and lifted her head to look at Yi Chen. "Yi Chen, junior sister Mu has never forgotten you. Is there any point in saying this now?" Yi Chen had a complicated expression. "No." Lin Lan shook her head and said, "She once said that you died to save her, and she wanted to avenge you, so she joined my Jade Lake sacred ground. For you, she chose to cultivate the supreme emotion forgetting art that destroys all emotions." Senior sister Mu said that the moment she knew you died, her heart was already dead. At this point, her face was extremely bitter. "She didn't tell me your name back then, so I didn't recognize you when I first came into contact with you. You may leave." Yi Chen shook his head lightly and lifted his head to look at the tens of thousands of people below. "Do you guys still want to stay for tea?" "We wouldn't dare." The expressions of the tens of thousands of people changed. They turned around and left in an orderly manner, afraid that Yi Chen would vent his anger on them. In an instant, the vast valley was completely cleared out, leaving only a few people behind. Yi Chen carried his daughter and watched Lin Lan leave with Mu Caiwei's body quietly. He sighed softly in his heart. He did not hate Mu Caiwei for betraying him. At most, he was disappointed. After all, what was this compared to the greatest betrayal that Yi Chen had ever experienced? What really angered him was that Mu Caiwei should not have used her daughter to exchange for a bargaining chip to make him stronger. Perhaps Mu Caiwei had done everything for him, but it had touched Yi Chen's bottom line. Meng Meng was Yi Chen's bottom line. At that moment, Xiao He suddenly stopped an old voice. He grinned, revealing his white teeth. "Old thing, are you going in?" End of this chapter. Chapter 1242. Yi Chen looked over and realized that it was old man Yi Jian. However, he was scared out of his wits at that moment, and he looked extremely terrified. "Why, Emperor Lord Yi, spare me!" Old man Yi Jian knelt heavily before Yi Chen and kowtowed like he was pounding garlic. "It's a misunderstanding, it's all a misunderstanding." At that moment, he did not have the arrogant temperament that he had when he bullied the Hu family at the beginning of the Jade Lake meeting. Yi Chen grabbed him and crippled his cultivation base directly. He then tossed him to Xiao He. Give him to Hu Fei later as an explanation to the Hu family. A day later, in the main hall of the Jade Lake Sacred Land. "Daddy, do you know that I miss you so much?" "Daddy isn't here. Mommy isn't here. I thought I became a child without a father or mother." The little girl sat in Yi Chen's embrace and hugged his neck tightly with her soft little hands. Her tears flowed down like pearls from a broken necklace. Yi Chen hugged her in his embrace by instinct and wiped her tears with his hand. His heart was filled with endless self-blame. "When I first came here, they bullied me. They said that I was Auntie Mu's child. I explained to them, but they didn't believe me." The little girl looked at him aggrievedly. Yi Chen's heart skipped a beat when he heard that. He asked while smiling, "How did Auntie Mu treat you?" "In the beginning, Auntie Mu treated me very well. I cried and asked for Daddy. Auntie Mu told me that Daddy isn't dead and Daddy will come back to pick me up." The little girl's eyes were red as she said, "Someone bullied me, and Auntie Mu helped me beat her up. However, Auntie Moo often went into closed-door cultivation and didn't come out. I didn't have food or water for a few days. At that time, I missed Daddy and Mommy. When I was too hungry, I would steal the chickens that those bad guys raised and hide in the forest to roast them. Yi Chun did not know whether to laugh or cry when he heard that. You can cook now? Daddy, you're so naughty. You're still laughing. The little girl was so aggrieved that she almost cried again. Those bad guys' chickens are so powerful, especially that peacock-like long-feathered chicken. It's so painful to peck. At this point, she suddenly smiled through her tears. I knew I couldn't beat it, so I stole its eggs when it went out for a walk and cooked them all to piss it off. What happened after that? Yi Chun listened quietly. The little fellow pursed his lips and said, Later on, I met a bad uncle. He gave me delicious food and drinks, and even stewed the long-feathered chicken that often pecked me into soup. Yi Chun's gaze sharpened. Clearly, the bad uncle that the little girl was referring to was the Jade Lake holy leader, Feng Baiyu. He thinks I'm stupid. The little fellow snorted. Actually, I understand. Because every time he looks at me, it's just like how Fatty Wu would look at his female desk mate. Shi Qianhan, who was standing at the side, burst into laughter. The little girl turned around and glared at him fiercely. The former immediately put away his smile and coughed very seriously. I'm not laughing. That bad uncle kept using delicious food to trick me. For example, what does my father do? Why is my physique so good? The little girl could not stop mumbling. I told him that Daddy is a police officer who specializes in catching bad guys. I'm a child of the party, an outstanding young pioneer. Then, he asked me what a police officer is and what a party is. I really can't control myself anymore. Shi Qianhan immediately stood up and held back his laughter as he left the hall without looking back. Yi Chun could not help but chuckle. The little girl said with a pale face, Then, the bad uncle got angry and tied me to a tree. Bad uncle has been beaten to death by father. Yi Chun pinched her cheek and comforted her. Don't be afraid. With Daddy here, no one can bully you anymore. Daddy, how long until we find Mommy? The little girl curled up in his embrace and sobbed. Daddy will bring you to Mommy right away. Yi Chun comforted her, but his gaze turned cold. The matter at Jade Lake is over. We'll go to the great Yin Imperial Dynasty next. When he was helping the Patriarch of Hell in the southern region earlier, he had learned from Shang Wudao's memories that the 5 people on the ghost ship were taken away in 3 groups. One of them was related to the great Yin Imperial Dynasty. Half a day later, outside the Jade Lake sacred land, Shi Qianhan was dressed in white as he stood in the wind. He looked at Yi Chun quietly and said, Brother Yi, I've received a transfer order from my godfather. I'm going back. Before I leave, let me give you a piece of advice. Although you've reached the Emperor's throne stage, you've also killed the Jade Lake Sacred Master and shocked everyone. His expression was extremely serious, however. You've killed the great Yin's Emperor Yin Zhaoyang and the great Qi's Emperor Jiang Yichen in front of many people. Whether it's the great Yin or the great Qi, there are Emperor's throne powerhouses guarding them. You have to be careful. At this point, he took a deep breath in and said, The great Yin's Emperor Xian Ku and the great Qi's Emperor Jiang Juexian are both at the same level as my godfather, the Northern Sea Sacred Master. If these 2 attack you, I know. Yi Chun smiled lightly and said while looking at him, It's fine as long as your godfather doesn't attack me. Whether it was the great Yin's Emperor Xian Ku or the great Qi's Emperor Jiang Juexian, he did not care. He cared about his friend Shi Qianhan. If the Northern Sea Sacred Master also became his enemy, Shi Qianhan would definitely be in a difficult position. That won't happen. Shi Qianhan shook his head and smiled. My godfather is an upright person. He won't attack you for no reason. Moreover, I'll pave the way for you. Yi Chun waved his sleeve, and 3 bottles of medicinal pills landed in Shi Qianhan's hand. Shi Qianhan's expression changed slightly. Brother Yi, What are you? It was because he realized that the 3 bottles of medicinal pills were all heavenly pills without exception. One had to know that heavenly pills were extremely rare even in the various sacred grounds. Yi Chen shook his head and said, "You've helped me many times. Just take it as a gift from me. Just accept it." Although the Jade Lake Sacred Ground had been disbanded, no one dared to touch the sect's resources. They were all plundered by Xiao He, and these 3 heavenly pills came from the Jade Lake Sacred Ground's treasure vault. Forget it. If Brother Yi has any difficulties in the future, feel free to tell me if you don't mind me. Shi Qianhan was not a pretentious person. After accepting the 3 medicinal pills, he rode the North Sea Dragon subduing palaces flying carriage and left. Yi Chen watched him leave. Just when he was about to turn around and return, he saw Xiao He walking over quickly and said, "Master, someone at the foot of the mountain wants to see you." "Who is it?" Yi Chen frowned. He had killed too many people. Apart from the people from the Jade Lake Sacred Ground, there were also many people from the other sections. At this time, he had become the target of public criticism. Everyone was afraid to avoid him, and there were actually people who took the initiative to see him. "He's from the Octagonal Tower," Xiao He said. "He said that he's under the orders of the Octagonal Tower's master to deliver you a piece of news about Mistress and the rest." Yi Chen was about to refuse when lightning exploded in his eyes when he heard the last sentence clearly. "Bring him here." End of this chapter. Chapter 1243. In the main hall of the Jade Lake Sacred Land, Yi Chen fixed his gaze on an old man in black below. Although he did not reveal his aura, his sharp gaze still made the latter tremble in fear. The latter was Attendant Wu of the Octagonal Tower. "Sit." Yi Chen spoke slowly. He only looked at Attendant Wu after he sat up straight and said, "Why does your Octagonal Tower want to see me? If I remember correctly, there has never been any conflict between me and your Octagonal Tower, right?" Before this, Xiao He had already told Yi Chen about the Octagonal Tower. In short, the Octagonal Tower was an intelligence force. No matter what era or time it was, there would always be a lack of intelligence. Even in the cultivation world, it was no exception. For example, if a cultivator needed some medicinal herbs for refining pills, he would need the help of an intelligence force. After all, the world was vast. There was no need to spend decades or even hundreds of years searching for a batch of medicinal pills. Attendant Wu took a deep breath in and said respectfully, "Emperor Yi, I'm here on Elder Pan's orders. As for why he asked me to come, I don't know either." "Elder Pan?" Yi Chen frowned. As if sensing his confusion, Attendant Wu immediately explained, "Elder Pan is the true master of the Octagonal Tower. The Octagonal Tower was founded by him." Even though he already knew why the other party was here, Yi Chen still said in disbelief, "What news did your Octagonal Tower bring me this time?" "Emperor Yi." Attendant Wu's spirits were lifted. He then took out a scroll from his body. "The things that Elder Pan wants to tell me are all in here." Yi Chen grabbed the scroll from afar and grabbed it directly. He scanned it with his divine consciousness and could not help but be surprised. This scroll was actually sealed by mental power. Moreover, the spiritual power that sealed him was not the power of a martial artist's soul, but a cultivator's divine consciousness. Moreover, it was a beginner-stage God transformation divine consciousness. If this scroll was left outside and obtained by someone below the Emperor's throne, no one below the Emperor's throne would be able to break the divine consciousness seal, let alone obtain its contents. Thinking to this point, he was not in a hurry to open the scroll. Instead, he took a deep look at Attendant Wu. Could the Elder Pan behind him be a soul formation cultivator? This meant that there were cultivators in the ancient barren world. As soon as this thought flashed through his mind, he was shocked even with his temperament. He immediately stuck the scroll to his forehead and released his divine sense to break the divine sense seal. "If I want to save my wife and daughter, head east to Great Een." Immediately afterward, These 8 golden words appeared in his mind, and they reverberated in his mind like thunder. If I want to save my wife and daughter, head east to Great Een. Yi Chen suppressed the shock in his heart and mumbled to himself, "It seems like my previous guess was right. The Great Een imperial dynasty and Yuan are indeed related." However, what he could not understand was how the mysterious octagonal tower's master found out about his relationship with Su Yuhan, and why did he tell him about it. He could not help but look at Deacon Wu. "Can you bring me to see your octagonal tower's elder Pan?" "I'm afraid not." Attendant Wu shook his head lightly, and then he laughed bitterly. "Emperor Yi, there's something you're unaware of. Elder Pan had already announced the dissolution of the Octavium Pavilion before he asked me to deliver this letter, and his whereabouts are unknown. No one knows where he is." Yi Chen frowned. This matter was getting more and more mysterious. Attendant Wu sighed softly and said, "Before he left, Elder Pan said that he leaked the secrets of heaven. Heaven is looking for him, and his calamity is coming." Yi Chen's frown deepened. At this moment, Attendant Wu suddenly knelt down heavily. "Emperor Yi, please use your divinity to erase my memories and save my life." Before he came, Elder Pan had instructed him to get Yi Chen to erase his memory immediately once the scroll was delivered. Otherwise, he would be killed, even though he did not know the contents of the scroll. "Forget it," Yi Chen shook his head in the end. "No matter what Elder Pan's motive is, if I really find Yuhan and the rest, I'll owe him a favor." That afternoon, a piece of shocking news spread throughout the entire Central State and even the entire ancient desolate realm. The octagonal tower has disbanded. When the news spread, the entire Central State was in an uproar. Countless people were dumbfounded. Even the upper echelons of many great sects did not dare to say that they had a complete understanding of the octagonal tower's origins because it had existed 2,000 years ago. In the past 2,000 years, the octagonal tower had infiltrated every corner of the ancient desolate realm, relying on reselling information to develop to this day. It was such an existence that even Emperor's throne powerhouses had to be wary of. In the past 2,000 years, countless powerhouses had coveted such an existence. Some even wanted to take it for themselves, but no one had succeeded. They did not even know the identity of the octagonal tower's master. And now, this colossus that had stood for over 1,000 years had suddenly and inexplicably disbanded? Before everyone could react, another shocking news spread. The Emperor of Great Een, Emperor Xianku, has taken revenge for his son. He has invited Yi Chen to fight on Mount Tangwu in 3 days. If the news of the octagonal tower's disbandment was like a bombshell, then the news of the Emperor of Great Een challenging Yi Chen was no different from a world-destroying lightning bolt. Countless people felt their scalps go numb. The Emperor of Great Een, a terrifying existence who had already stepped into the Emperor's throne stage, had publicly challenged Yi Chen? Before this, the Emperor's throne stage powerhouses had been hiding in the ancient desolate realm for thousands of years. They had never made such a big fuss. However, in the past few days, the Jade Lake Holy Master had been killed, and then the Emperor of Great Een had challenged them. How could the world not be terrified? Big news, it's definitely big news. It's been a long time since the ancient desolate realm has been so lively. The battle between two emperors' throne powerhouses, no matter who wins, is enough to shock the world. We can't miss it. That's right. We'll watch from afar. Perhaps we can comprehend the emperor's throne's demeanor. We might even have a chance to reach the emperor's throne. Do you think Yi Chen will accept the challenge? In just 1 day, the entire central state and even the ancient desolate realm were shaken. Countless people could not help but look at the Jade Lake sacred ground. The deputy sect leader of the Clear Sky Sword sect, Xian Yuan, sneered. Although Yi just killed the Jade Lake Holy Master, it was mostly luck. I think he won't dare to agree. That's normal. After all, Emperor Xianku is different from the Jade Lake Holy Master. Taoist Zephyr Thunder from the Dongfang family shook his head and said, although the former became famous relatively late, his methods are not inferior to the Jade Lake Holy Masters. In addition to the nation's fortune, he's even stronger than the Jade Lake Holy Master. If ye doesn't agree, wouldn't we be unable to take revenge for the paragons of our sex? Gu Lin of the Immovable Light sect was filled with hatred. At this moment, a sentence came from the Jade Lake sacred ground. It was so short that there were only 6 words. If you want to fight, then let's fight. P.S. Chapter 5 updated today. End of this chapter. Chapter 1244. 2 days passed in the blink of an eye. During these 2 days, Yi Chen remained in the Jade Lake sacred land. He was not in a hurry to go to Mount Tangwu. Instead, he spent most of his time with his daughter. At the same time, he went to the octagonal tower to try to find out the identity of the tower's master, Elder Pan. However, he did not find anything. It was as if this person was trapped in this world. On the other hand, the hype about him in the outside world did not die down. Instead, it became more and more intense. After all, Yi Chen had killed the Jade Lake Holy Leader and forced the Jade Lake Holy Land to disband. It was shocking enough. Moreover, the emperor of the Great Yin Imperial Dynasty, Di Xuanxiang, had challenged Yi Chen 3 days later. It could be said to be the grandest event in the ancient desolate realm in the past 1,000 years. For a moment, Yi Chen was in the limelight. Countless forces tried their best to find out about his identity, background, and even his origins. However, everyone realized that Yi Chen seemed to have appeared out of nowhere. The only useful information was that Yi Chen first appeared in the great dynasty of the northern region. This made the outside world even more curious about Yi Chen. Some people said that Yi Chen was the son of a hidden ancient realm that had not appeared in the world for a long time. He went out to experience the mortal world and hone his Tao heart. Some people said that Yi Chen was the reincarnation of an ancient almighty. Otherwise, he would not have stepped into the emperor's throne stage at such a young age. There were many different opinions. No matter what, Yi Chen became one of the most popular figures in the ancient, desolate realm. He was said to be able to surpass the Emperor of Great Yin and the Emperor of Great Xia within 1,000 years. The impact was that countless youths knelt at the foot of the Jade Lake sacred land every day, begging Yi Chen to be their master. There were also masters of declining forces who brought valuable gifts and begged to meet Yi Chen to obtain his protection. There were also many great sects who expressed their goodwill to Yi Chen. After this incident, the Hu family of Dusk Province became famous. After the Hu family's master, Hu Baimei, returned to the clan, she immediately decided that Hu Fei would be the next master of the Hu family. The Hu family's only martial saint patriarch even taught Hu Fei everything he knew. To the surprise of the Hu family, Hu Fei refused without hesitation. He chose to stay by Yi Chen's side and served him tea without complaint. While the outside world was focused on Yi Chen, in the Jade Lake sacred land, in the Jade God Valley, Yi Chen sat cross-legged in the quiet room. In front of him was a mountain of spirit stones, and on the side was a pill furnace engraved with formation runes. The pill furnace was connected directly to the earth lung fire, and an endless amount of essence fire was surging violently. As expected of a peerless sect in the ancient barren world, this kind of heritage is not something that Earth can compare to. Even in the cultivation world, it is comparable to some small sects. Yi Chen rubbed his chin and observed everything quietly. A smile blossomed on his face. There are over 80,000 low-grade spirit stones in total. Including the ones I've saved up before, I have about 120,000 pieces. This amount might have been a lot for me before I reached the soul formation stage, but after I reached the soul formation stage, the acceleration of my cultivation base can't just be achieved by replenishing spiritual energy. He thought to himself, the soul formation stage is different from the nascent soul stage. It's more about strengthening one's soul. If one's soul is strong enough, the divine arts and Tao techniques that one can cast would naturally be powerful enough. Besides, even if I absorb these spirit stones, I won't be able to recover to the mid-stage of soul formation. I might as well keep them for now and polish my daughter's foundation in the future so that she can embark on the path of cultivation. Yi Chen had an idea as he thought to this point: if I want to increase my ability faster now, perhaps I can consider working on magic treasures and divine abilities. Buzz, as the void trembled, a palm-sized black mountain peak appeared in his palm. It was the 5 Elements Origin Magnetic Mountain. Yi Chen's eyes flickered as he said, "When I was in the cultivation world back then, I personally witnessed a Mahayana stage patriarch refining a primordial magnet mountain into a treasure. With a wave of his hand, he suppressed a sect. Now, I can do the same. After all, after reaching the early stage of soul formation, I still have a suitable primordial spirit magic treasure." He smiled. "Even though the Night Demon battle armor and the Emperor brush were treasures from my previous life, they were greatly damaged after that battle and can't be recovered for the time being. As for divine abilities, the true martial Tao sect in the immortal world has a monstrous fist technique known as the 6 Paths of Reincarnation Fist. At its peak, it can reverse the 6 paths of reincarnation and destroy worlds with a single punch." Yi Chen activated the true origin energy in his body as he thought to this point. He stretched his hand out and patted the huge pill furnace before him. He threw the refining materials that he had prepared into the surging earth-lung essence fire. As the temperature in the quiet room rose, an aura that made one's heart palpitate gradually spread out. After 3 days of brewing, the battle between Di Xuanxiang and Yi Chen on Mount Tangwu had finally reached its climax. This earth-shattering battle had finally arrived. In an instant, the entire ancient desolate realm was in an uproar. Countless sects and families gathered on Mount Tangwu, unwilling to miss this pinnacle battle. On the morning of the 3rd day, the tightly shut stone door of the quiet room finally opened. Xiao He and the 9 carving phoenix, who had been waiting outside, immediately welcomed them. "Master, how is it?" Xiao He hugged Meng Meng and asked. Even the 9 carving phoenix could not help but look at Yi Chen nervously. With the death of the Jade Lake Holy Master, it could be said to be completely loyal to Yi Chen. Therefore, it was a little worried about the battle between Yi Chen and Di Xuanxiang. "It's done." Yi Chen chuckled softly and opened his right hand slowly. A mountain peak that contained the color of chaos appeared in his palm. The mountain was no longer as dark as the 5 Elements Origin Magnet Mountain. After Yi Chen's refinement, it was even more powerful than before. Meanwhile, Yi Chen called it the 5 Elements Hell Peak. Under the little girl's expectant gaze, Yi Chen waved his sleeve, and a black shadow landed before everyone. The black shadow seemed to be a human ape puppet that was less than a meter tall. Its entire body emitted a thick luster, faintly emitting a strong murderous aura. The little girl struggled out of Xiao Hei's embrace and sized up the mechanical puppet. "Daddy, what is this?" Even Xiao Hei and the 9 carving phoenix were confused. Yi Chen smiled lightly and held the little girl's hand. With a gentle stroke, a drop of blood fell between the mechanical puppet's brows. Rumble, the ape-like mechanical puppet exploded with a monstrous aura and knelt heavily before Yi Chen. Yi Chen said with a smile, "This is a mechanical puppet. Daddy refined it for you. It can protect you at critical moments." He had refined this mechanical puppet based on the primordial demon ape. Due to the limited materials, its combat strength was only equivalent to a 5-rank martial saint. However, it was enough to protect the little girl. If it self-destructed at critical moments, even a 9-rank martial saint would be severely injured. Hearing that, the 9 carving phoenix looked at Yi Chen with even more respect. "A mechanical puppet that's comparable to a 5-rank martial saint. This method is heaven-defying, let's go. It's time to teach this so-called Di Xuanxiang a lesson." At that moment, Yi Chen's eyes shone with divine light. He had a monstrous aura that looked down on the ancient, desolate realm. End of this chapter. Chapter 1245. Mount Tangwu. This mountain was located in the eastern border of Central State, in the territory of the Great Yin Imperial Dynasty. It was called the Emperor Mountain by all the people of the Great Yin Imperial Dynasty. Legend had it that thousands of years ago, the Great Yin Emperor, Emperor Xian Ku, had comprehended heaven and earth on this mountain and reached the emperor's throne stage. Over the years, countless people had worshipped this mountain. Every year, they would rush to the mountainside to burn incense and pray for blessings. On the way to the eastern border, a giant black ape that was 30 meters tall leaped between the mountains and crossed the rivers as if it was walking on flat ground. When countless people saw this scene along the way, they thought that a ferocious beast had appeared. They were so scared that their faces turned pale and they retreated. On the back of the giant black ape, there was an empty space of about 50 square meters. It was covered with straw mats, and Yi Chun and the rest were sitting there. "Daddy, this monster is so magical." Meng Meng climbed onto the railing and stared at the giant black ape with her eyes wide open. She could not understand why the monster that her father refined could grow and shrink even though it was lifeless. Even Xiao He and the 9 carving phoenix were shocked speechless by Yi Chen's abilities. It was clearly a puppet that was dead, but it was like a real giant ape. Yi Chen explained patiently. Since ancient times, Earth had such mechanisms. For example, Lu Ban had created stone grinders, siege ladders, ink dippers, and other things that had influenced the future. In the cultivation world, there was no lack of people who studied these strange things. Therefore, mechanical puppets came into being. As long as a spirit stone was embedded in it, it would have enough energy to move. The 9 carving phoenix praised sincerely, "Master, according to the speed of this mechanical puppet, we'll be able to reach Mount Tangwu in less than 2 hours." Yi Chen nodded lightly. Just when he was about to speak, he heard a crisp voice coming from afar, "Senior brother from the Gongshu family, please wait." Yi Chen looked in the direction of his gaze when he heard that. He saw a flying ship that had sunk into the sea 3,000 meters away to the south. There were 3 men and 1 woman in the air. The woman in red was waving at him, as if she was asking for help. Yi Chen ignored her and continued to move the giant black ape forward. When she saw this, the woman in red was so angry that she stomped her feet. A young man in black behind her instantly sneered, "Junior sister, that person is so arrogant. He actually ignored us." As soon as he was done speaking, he charged at Yi Chen and the rest. Unfortunately, he happened to block their way. Yi Chen ordered the giant black ape to stop and glared at him coldly. Xiao He and the 9 carving Luan's gazes turned hostile. The black-clothed youth said arrogantly, "Brother, my junior sister asked you to wait. Didn't you hear her? What do you think?" Xiao He looked at Yi Chen as if asking for his opinion. Should he kill him directly or teach him a lesson? "Senior brother Mo Rong, don't act recklessly." At this time, the woman in red caught up with the other 2 people. The woman in red glared at the black-robed young man. She then clasped her fists at Yi Chen and said politely, "Greetings, senior brother from the Gongshu family. I'm Mo Hongxiu from the Mo family. I apologize to senior brother Mo Rong." Her words and actions were very polite, which made Yi Chen's frown slowly relax. "Why did you stop me?" "Senior brother, we were planning to go to Mount Tangwu in the east, but something happened to the flying boat and it fell into the water." Mo Hongxiu glanced at the giant black ape secretly. Her pretty face heated up as she said shyly, "So, can I ride on your puppet?" She looked at Yi Chen in anticipation after saying that. Yi Chen was surprised. "You guys are going to Mount Tangwu too? Senior brother, you're going to Mount Tangwu too? That's great." Mo Hongxiu was stunned at first when she heard that. Then, she said happily, "Senior brother, please help us since we're from Jixiao Academy." Yi Chen wanted to reject her, but he asked by instinct when he heard Jixiao Academy, "What's your relationship with Ning Haoren?" Ning Haoren was Grand Tutor Ning. When Yi Chun was in the Great Li dynasty in the Tianfeng Sea area, Grand Tutor Ning had helped him a lot. After that, Yi Chun found out that Grand Tutor Ning had fallen out with Shang Wudao and left the Great Li dynasty to return to Jixia Academy in Zhongzhou. Before Mo Hongxiu could speak, Mo Rong was furious. How dare you call Mountain Master Ning by his name? This time, it was Mo Hongxiu's turn to look at him in surprise. Senior brother, you're also from Jixia Academy. Don't you know that Mountain Master Ning is the Deputy Mountain Master of the Legalism Academy? Who told you that I'm from Jixia Academy? Yi Chen shook his head lightly and said while smiling, moreover, I'm not from the Gongshu family. That's impossible, right? Mo Hongxiu's eyes widened as she sized up the black ape. In the entire ancient barren world, only the Gongshu family and the people from Jixia Academy's School of Mechanics can create such an exquisite mechanical puppet. She said awkwardly when she saw that Yi Chen's expression did not seem to be fake as she said to this point, I mistook you for someone else. I'm sorry. She turned around to leave after saying that. Yi Chen stopped her and said while shaking his head, forget it. I'll bring you guys along for Ning Haoran's sake. That's great. Thank you. Mo Hongxiu was overjoyed. She then boarded the black puppet with the three of them behind her. The giant black ape proceeded to move forward. Mo Hongxiu introduced them to everyone as soon as she got up. Yi Chen then learned that the three people behind her were Mo Rong, Mo Nan, and Mo Ming. The four of them were from Jixia Academy in Chinatown. However, compared to Mo Hongxiu's politeness, Mo Rong and the other two looked rather arrogant when they faced Yi Chen and the rest. They seemed to be proud that they came from Jixia Academy. Mo Hongxiu lifted her eyes to take a good look at Yi Chen and the rest after she was done introducing them. Senior brother, I don't know your names yet. Yi Chen said while smiling, just call me Senior Brother Yi. On the other hand, Xiao He and the 9 Carving Luan were not interested in the four of them. Especially the 9 Carving Luan, it could be said to be disdainful. With its identity, even some of the mountain masters in Jixia Academy had to call themselves juniors when they saw it. The only person that it respected was the head of the academy. Mo Hongxiu did not mind that Xiao He and the other two were ignoring her. Perhaps it was her first time out, so she chatted with Yi Chen without any hesitation. Mo Rong, who was next to her, glared at Yi Chen and the other three coldly. He then exchanged glances with Mo Nan and the other two next to him. He seemed to dislike Xiao He and the rest for ignoring them. Master, this girl has an extraordinary background. If I'm not mistaken, she should be the daughter of Jixia Academy's Mo School's mountain master. The 9 Carving Luan secretly spoke to Yi Chen through voice transmission. It added at the end of its sentence, the position of the Mo School's mountain master has always been held by the Mo School's master. So what? Yi Chen did not care at all. No. The 9 Carving Luan said in a deep voice, you can ignore the Mo School's master, but there's one person that you must pay attention to. End of this chapter. Chapter 1246. Who is it? Yi Chen was surprised. The Jade Lake Saint Master Feng Baiyu and the Emperor of Great Yin were considered the top figures in the ancient desolate realm, but he still did not take them seriously. He could not think of anyone else who was worthy of his fear. He's the master of Jixia Academy, the Chancellor. The 9 Eagle Phoenix took a deep breath in and said word by word, Jixia Academy has a supreme position in the ancient desolate realm. Although it's only a place where scholars gather, it can influence the world. Whether it's the Great Yin Dynasty or the Great Qi Dynasty, there are officials from Jixia Academy. Yi Chen nodded slightly. He had long known that the Jixia Academy in the ancient desolate realm was suspected to be from the Jixia Academy during the pre-Qin dynasty on Earth. Mo Hongxiu had said earlier that there were Moism academies, legalism academies, and even techniques academies in Jixia Academy. All of them verified the history of the 100 schools of thought during the pre-Qin dynasty. The 9 Eagle Luan seemed to be in awe. The head of the academy is known as the teacher of all scholars in the ancient barren world. Even the saint master of the Jade Lake, Feng Baiyu, and the emperor of the Great Yin, Xian Ku, have to show some respect to him. Is he very powerful? Yi Chen frowned. More powerful than the Jade Lake Saint Master? I'm not sure. The Nine-Eagle Phoenix said in a deep voice. No one has seen him fight. Some people say that he's just a scholar without cultivation. At this point, it could not help but sneer, however. I once heard that there was a peerless sect that was even stronger than the Jade Lake Sacred Land. It was wiped out overnight because it did not respect Jixia Academy. He took a deep breath in. There were 3 Emperor's Throne powerhouses in this peerless sect. Yi Chen was moved when he heard that. However, he smiled immediately. He had nothing to do with Jixia Academy, so why should he care? If he had to fight the mysterious master of the academy, he had nothing to fear. The voice transmission between the two of them was almost silent. Even Mo Hongxiu and the other 3 did not notice it at all. By the way, senior brother Yi, why are you guys going to Mount Tangwu? Mo Hongxiu widened her beautiful eyes and looked at Yi Chen curiously. Are you guys going to watch the battle between Di Xianming and Yi Chen too? Yi Chen did not answer the question. You guys too? Yeah. Mo Hongxiu seemed to have opened a chatterbox. I've always been locked up in the academy by my father, and I'm about to get sick from holding it in. This time, I heard that there were strong cultivators of the Emperor's Throne realm fighting, so I brought senior brother Mo Rong and the others out for a walk. Cough, cough, cough. Mo Rong coughed repeatedly and interrupted her. He then looked at Yi Chen meaningfully. Junior sister Hongxiu, don't forget what eldest senior brother told you before you left. It's hard to tell what's in a man's heart. Mo Hongxiu knew that she had said something inappropriate. She stuck out her tongue mischievously and did not continue the previous topic. Yi Chen smiled faintly. He vaguely guessed that this inexperienced girl must have snuck out behind the master's back. The world passed by silently. Just as everyone was about to reach the eastern border, Mo Hongxiu couldn't help but ask again, Senior brother Yi, who do you think will win the battle between the 2 Emperor's Throne realm powerhouses? Junior sister, what's the point of asking them? Mo Rong couldn't help but laugh as he said, I'm afraid they haven't even seen an Emperor's Throne before, so how would they know how terrifying an Emperor's Throne is? That's right. Mo Ming glanced at Yi Chen in disdain and said rather proudly, My senior brother from the previous batch is now an official of the Great Yin dynasty. According to him, the Great Yin Emperor's might is vast, and his royal aura is like a dragon. He's a rare hero in the world, and he's unfathomable. At this point, he could not help but shake his head and say, Therefore, in my opinion, the Emperor's Throne will definitely lose in this battle. What are you talking about? Xiao He immediately stood up when he heard that and looked at him coldly with an unfriendly expression. Do you dare to repeat what you just said? The 9-Condor Phoenix was stunned at first, but then it looked at Mo Ming with a mocking expression. Its eyes were filled with a spurious smile. In the entire ancient desolate realm, only this little fellow would dare to say that he would lose in front of the Emperor. Xiao Hei's ferocious gaze scared Mo Ming. The latter's expression changed as he scoffed. I'm just talking about the Emperor's Throne powerhouse with the surname Yi. Why are you so agitated? Xiao Hei stared at him coldly. Sit down. Yi Chen glanced at him and looked at Mo Ming while smiling. Go on. I'd like to hear your opinion too. After Blackus sat down, Mo Ming said with an unhappy expression, I didn't say anything wrong. Don't forget, the Emperor of Great Yin is a powerful cultivator of the Emperor's Throne realm who has been famous for a long time. Mo Ming, I don't agree with your words. Mo Hongxiu pursed her lips and said, In terms of age, the Jade Lake Divine Lord is older than the Emperor of Great Yin. Didn't he still die at the hands of Emperor Yi? Junior apprentice Sister Hongxiu, you might not know this, but although the Jade Lake Saint Master Feng Baiyu is older than the Great Yin's sovereign lord, the lifespan of an Emperor's Throne cultivator is only 5,000 years. Mo Nan, who hadn't spoken yet, shook his head and said, "It's said that the Jade Lake Sacred Master's lifespan was approaching its end. His blood essence had dried up, and his strength had definitely declined. It makes sense that Emperor Lord Yu was able to kill him." He paused for a moment before continuing. "Meanwhile, the great Yin Sovereign Lord is at the peak of his power. He has at least 1,000 more years to live. He's not someone the Jade Lake Divine Master can compare to." Mo Hongxiu could not refute what he said. Seeing that both of them agreed with him, Mo Rong could not help but say proudly, "That's why I said that Yi will definitely lose. Perhaps he's too young and doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth." Blackie was so angry that his eyes were burning. However, because Yi Chen did not allow it, he could only suppress his emotions. Yi Chen smiled without saying anything. With his magnanimity, he would not argue with them. Instead, he found it rather interesting. An hour later, the giant black ape finally brought everyone to the eastern border of Central State, near Mount Tangwu. Tens of thousands of kilometers away, a huge purple gourd dashed through the thick clouds. The huge gourd flew for thousands of feet, and wherever it passed, the clouds dispersed. "Old man, hurry up, hurry up! If you delay my time to cheer for the son-in-law, you'll have to prepare to receive my punishment." On the giant purple gourd, a beautiful girl in divine clothes and bathed in treasure light urged with all her might. Her beautiful eyes were filled with impatience. "My great-aunt, this old man is already very fast." The person who responded to her was a barefoot old man. At that moment, the barefoot old man did not know whether to laugh or cry. He was the patriarch of the Divine Light Palace after all, a supreme figure who stood at the peak of the ancient desolate realm. He did not expect to be free labor for a little girl. However, when he thought of this girl's terrifying talent, he could not help but smile. "I don't care. I'll give you an hour. If you can't make it in an hour, you can kill yourself." The girl in divine clothes snorted coldly. "Sigh, all right." The barefoot old man took a deep breath and activated the giant purple gourd with all his might. Its speed increased by more than 2 times. "Girl, I'll make a promise with you first. If your young master can't beat Di Xianling, you're not allowed to ask me for help." End of this chapter. Chapter 1247. Is this Mount Tangwu? It's so majestic. In the eastern border of Central State, within the territory of the Great Yin Imperial Dynasty, Mo Hongxiu and the rest widened their eyes as they looked at the huge mountain before them in shock. In front of everyone, a huge mountain that stretched as far as the eye could see stood between heaven and earth. Under the illumination of the scorching sun, the entire mountain faintly emitted a divine glow, causing one to be unable to help but feel a sense of awe. From afar, it was as if the clouds only covered half of the mountain. Immortal cranes cried together, and a huge stairway of unknown length led straight to the top of the mountain. It looked like it was made of bronze. Yi Chen, on the other hand, was not surprised as he sized it up. As expected of the number 1 divine mountain in the eastern border, Mo Rong could not help but take a deep breath in and say, "It's said that Mount Tangwu is 100,000 feet tall, and it's extremely steep and dangerous. If ordinary people want to reach the peak, it'll take them half a year. Moreover, it's extremely dangerous, and this stairway to heaven, it's a work of art." Mo Hongxiu opened her mouth slightly. "Even the Gongshu family, which is the most skilled in the art of ingenuity in our academy, would have to spend a lot of manpower and effort to build it. Look, what are those people doing?" Mo Ming suddenly pointed into the distance. Everyone looked in the direction he was pointing and saw many people in simple clothes on the stone stairway 3,000 feet away. They were setting up incense tables and placing livestock sacrifices on them, as if they were worshipping something. At this moment, a faint laugh came from behind them. "They are all the citizens of the Great Yin at the foot of Mount Tangwu." Following that, a young man in luxurious clothes walked over slowly. Behind him were several old figures with powerful auras. Mo Rong took a step forward. "Who are you? Impudent! Before the young man in luxurious clothes could speak, an old man behind him had a cold gaze and was about to step forward. The young man in luxurious clothes stopped him with a glance. He then clasped his fists at Yi Chen and the rest. Greetings, everyone. I'm the Prince of Great Yin Wuhan. I'm ranked 9th in my family. So it's Prince Wuhan. Mo Rong's expression changed immediately. He clasped his fists nervously. I was rude earlier. We're from Jixia Academy. As he spoke, he introduced Mo Hongxiu and the rest, leaving out Yi Chen and the rest. Oh, it's the brilliant students of Jixia Academy. Yin Wuhan became even more polite. Our great Yin Imperial Dynasty's 3 dukes all came from your Jixia Academy. Looks like we're on the same side. Yi Chen took a deep look at the 9th-ranked Great Yin's crown prince. After careful calculation, 2 of the Great Yin's crown princes had died at his hands. He just did not know how the former would react if he found out. Both sides flattered each other and quickly became familiar with each other. Mo Hongxiu couldn't help but ask, Prince Wuhan, may I ask what those people are doing? Yin Wuhan glanced at the people who were praying and said coldly, They're praying to the divine mountain, hoping that my father will kill Yi Chen so that he will never be able to reincarnate. Hearing this, Black immediately took a step forward. Are you courting death? This is? Yin Wuhan's eyes narrowed. Mo Hongxiu hurriedly said, Prince Wuhan, this is senior brother Yi. He was the one who brought us here, I see. I thought he's Ms. Mo's servant. A cold gleam flashed through Yin Wuhan's eyes as he said with a faint smile, however, even if he's not a servant, please be careful with your words. This is the Great Yin Imperial Dynasty. Black. Yi Chen glanced at Black. Only then did Black retreat. However, his eyes were filled with killing intent when he looked at Yin Wuhan. The 9-carving phoenix looked at Yin Wuhan with sympathy and shook its head. What a pitiful child. I don't know if your father will be able to kill this malefic, but your life is over. Sensing that the atmosphere was off, Mo Hongxiu took the initiative to smooth things over for Yi Chen. Prince Wuhan, it's almost time. Let's go up the mountain. That's good too. Yin Wuhan glanced at Yi Chen and the rest again. Then, he turned around and walked up Mount Tangwu. Along the way, he introduced the rumors of Mount Tangwu to Mo Hongxiu and the rest, even the customs of the Great Yin Imperial Dynasty. Yi Chen carried his daughter and satisfied the little girl's request to enjoy the scenery. He did not speak to Yin Wuhan and the rest. At that moment, 9 sword gleams passed by them. They broke through the clouds like 9 white waterfalls and went straight to the top of the mountain. They disappeared in the blink of an eye. Are they from the Great Heaven Sword sect? Mo Rong and the rest were shocked. Before they could react, another purple dragon soared into the sky and flew over their head. Are they from the North Sea Dragon Subduing Hall? Mo Hongxiu and the rest were even more shocked. I heard from my father that the purple dragon is the one suppressed by the Dragon Subduing Hall, right? Now that it's here, it seems like the North Sea Dragon Master is here too. The Immovable Light sect is here too. There are people from the Great Xia Imperial Dynasty too. Oh my god, I actually saw the Great Xia Imperial Princess, Hua Qianren, as they got closer to the top of the mountain, not only Mo Hongxiu and the rest, but also the people from various forces along the way could not help but be shocked speechless. This peerless battle that attracted the attention of the world actually shocked the entire ancient barren world. All the famous forces had rushed over. Among them were peerless sects like the Great Xia Imperial Dynasty, the Great Qi Imperial Dynasty, the Great Qin Imperial Dynasty, and the North Sea Dragon Subduing Hall. When everyone reached the top of the mountain, they were all shocked by the scene before them. Floating islands of various sizes filled the sky, and there were already hundreds of thousands of people gathered on them. On the 9 floating islands at the top, there were several figures standing. Even though these people had already restrained their auras, their faint breathing was still like muffled thunder exploding in the air. The Emperor of the Great Xia Dynasty, Emperor Hua, the head of the Great Heaven Sword sect, Du Xing, the head of the North Sea Palace, Zi Kunlun, and the emperor of the Great Qin dynasty. Everyone's eyes were focused on the few figures, and they almost suffocated. Even Mo Hongxiu, Yin Wuhan, and the rest were no exception. They were here. These supreme figures who stood at the peak of the ancient barren world had all arrived at this moment. 8 Emperor's throne? Yi Chen looked at the 8 figures calmly. In the end, his gaze landed on the largest floating island in the sky. There was a figure in a purple gold robe sitting cross-legged. His eyes were slightly closed, as if he was a god who accepted the respect of the world. Yi Chen muttered softly, "Emperor Xianren." At this moment, a middle-aged man with white sideburns slowly spoke on the 9 floating islands. "Everyone, it's time. Emperor Yi hasn't arrived yet. Let's end it here." He was the North Sea Hall Master, Zi Kunlun. The moment he spoke, everyone's expressions changed. They had traveled thousands of kilometers to come here, so how could they be willing to see such an ending? Someone could not help but ask respectfully, "Hall Master, may I ask how this battle will be decided? Will it be considered Emperor Ye's defeat?" Of course. The North Sea Hall Master's eyes were like lightning, and he seemed to be upright and outspoken. Then, he glanced at Shi Qianhan below without a trace. What a pity! Beside him, the thin old man with an ancient longsword on his back shook his head slightly. "I thought that Yi Chen was someone to be able to kill Feng Bai. I didn't expect him to go back on his word and avoid battle because he's afraid of death." As soon as these words were spoken, many people nodded repeatedly, as if they agreed with Sword Master Hao Tian's words. "Old man Hao Tian, I don't like what you said." He just finished speaking when a middle-aged man in a golden dragon robe on the 5th floating island chuckled. "Since Emperor Lord Yi was able to kill Feng Baiyu, then your ability is naturally extraordinary. So why would you avoid battle?" Although his words were calm, no one below dared to refute him. This was because the former was the great Xia Emperor, Emperor Hua. In the crowd below, Mo Rong could not help but whisper, "Do you think that Emperor Yi really doesn't dare to come? That's normal." Mo Ming smiled faintly and glanced at Yin Wuhan. Prince Wuhan's father, the Emperor of Great Yin, is suppressing the Eastern world. It's reasonable for Emperor Yi to be afraid. Yin Wuhan pursed his lips as if he was proud. "I believe he will come." Mo Hongxiu shook her head repeatedly. For some reason, she felt that Emperor Yi should not be such a cowardly person. Above, Sword Master Hao Tian snorted coldly and said, "We'll wait for another incense stick's time. If Emperor Yi still hasn't arrived, we'll consider it his loss. At that time, I'd like to see how he'll have the face to stand in my ancient, desolate realm." Just as he finished speaking, an indifferent voice came from below, "There's no need to wait. I'm already here." Under everyone's gazes, Yi Chen carried his daughter and stepped into the sky. He walked towards the highest point step by step. His white hair was like an ice waterfall that flowed into the 9 heavens. At that moment, the heavens and earth were deathly silent. At that moment, Mo Hongxiu and the others were stunned. P.S. Chapter 4 has been updated for today. End of this chapter. Chapter 1248. At the peak of Mount Tangu. At this moment, the world was terrifyingly quiet. Everyone's eyes were focused on the thin figure that was walking in the sky. Under everyone's gaze, the figure stepped on the sky. His black clothes were blazing, and his eyes flickered with a resplendent divine light. He was like a god ascending to the heavens. At that moment, everyone looked up at his sharpness. Everyone was silent and dumbstruck. In the crowd below, Mo Hongxiu covered her red lips and stammered, "Yi? Senior brother Yi is the Yi. Emperor Yi who killed the Jade Lake Holy Lord? He's Yi Chen?" Mo Rong and the others cried out involuntarily. The people behind him opened their eyes wide, and their eyes were filled with disbelief. Especially Mo Ming and the other two. When they thought about how they had talked about him losing to Di Xian Xiang in front of Yi Chen along the way, the 3 of them were scared out of their wit. Yin Wuhan and the rest felt their scalps go numb. They had traveled with an emperor's throne powerhouse all the way, but they did not recognize him. Most importantly, Yi Qin could be considered as their enemy. However, they were still chatting and laughing when they were facing the enemy. When he thought up to hear, Yin Wuhan felt a boundless chill instantly run down his back, and bean-sized cold sweat flowed down in unison. Under everyone's gaze, Yi Chen carried his daughter and ascended to the 9 floating islands at the highest point. He's Yi Chen? The Yi Chen who flattened the Jade Lake Holy Land and killed the Jade Lake Holy Lord by himself? Tisk, he's as young as the rumors say. I'm afraid only the Eastly Emperor can compare to such a young emperor's throne powerhouse in the ancient desolate realm. In an instant, countless powerhouses stood up in shock. The leaders of the great sects sucked in a breath of cold air, their eyes filled with shock. So handsome, he's really so handsome. Many female disciples looked at Yi Chen like they were infatuated. If he could take a look at me, I'd be willing to die now. At the same time, the figures on the 9 floating islands looked at Yi Chen at the same time. That's right. The North Sea Dragon subduing palace lord was a man of few words. Those who knew him well knew that he had always been like this and rarely praised others. This kid can be said to be peerless in his generation. The great Xia dynasty's emperor, Emperor Hua, looked at Yi Chen with a golden gleam in his eyes. There was a flash of intense amazement deep in his eyes. The great Heaven Sword Sect's master, Du Xing's pupils shrunk violently. He seemed to be shocked by Yi Chen's aura. The great Qin emperor looked at Yi Chen quietly. A hint of a smile appeared in his deep eyes. Brother Yi, I have to say, you've surprised me time and time again. Yi Chen stopped walking slowly and lifted his eyes to look straight at him. I hope you can give me an explanation for what you said to me before you left that day. Of course. Ying smiled faintly, then seemed to have thought of something, but the premise is that Brother Yi can survive this time. After saying that, he looked meaningfully at the towering, unmoving figure on the huge floating island at the highest point. At practically the exact same moment, Di Xianxiang, who was sitting cross-legged at the highest point, suddenly opened his eyes and gazed over. Emperor Lord Yi, since you've arrived, then come up. Thud. Yi Chen placed his hands behind his back and took a step into the air. In the blink of an eye, he arrived at the highest floating island. Swoosh, Yi Chen lifted his gaze slightly and looked at Di Xianxiang, who was hundreds of meters away. At that moment, Di Xianxiang also looked over. Surging divine light erupted from their eyes at that moment. The green light and the blood light collided formlessly. 2 invisible forces shot out at the same time before colliding with a loud bang. Boom! The entire void trembled violently. Under everyone's gazes, a circular wave swept out in all directions with the 2 of them as the center. Wherever it passed, a storm was like a flood. Is this the collision of Emperor Might? Everyone's expression changed. No one knew what Emperor Might was exactly. They only knew that it seemed to be the manifestation of a person's essence, energy, and spirit. At that moment, whether it was the North Sea Hall Master and the others on the 9 floating islands or the hundreds of thousands of powerhouses from the entire ancient desolate realm below, they were all shocked. Everyone knew that this earth-shattering battle, that was hard to come by in 1,000 years, had already begun the moment Yi Chen appeared. Who would win and who would lose next would affect everyone's hearts. However, what puzzled many people was that the great Qi Emperor, Jiang Juexian, was not present. One had to know that Yi Chen and Jiang Juexian also had a grudge against each other for killing his son. Shi Qianhan looked at Yi Chen from below and mumbled to himself, Brother Yi, Qianhan believes in you. You can't lose. The great Xia dynasty's imperial daughter, Hua Qianren, also felt her heartbeat quicken. Father said that you're the person with the highest chance of approaching the Eastly Emperor. Senior Brother Yi, do your best. Mo Hongxiu puffed her cheeks and shouted, causing the great Yin's imperial son, Yin Wuhan, who was beside her, to have an ugly expression. The latter glanced at Yi Chen coldly and said with a cold smile, "It's a pity that you didn't kill me earlier because you won't have the chance anymore. You're destined to die in my father's hands." "Emperor Yi, I have to say that you've surprised me too much. You've reached the emperor's throne at such a young age. If you have the chance to grow, you might even become a legend of the primordial era in the future." Above, Di Xianling looked at Yi Chen quietly. He did not hide his admiration at all. Then, he changed the topic. "Unfortunately, you shouldn't have killed my second son. Therefore, your life is destined to be ended by me." "You're not the only one who speaks like that." Yi Chen stood proudly in the air while carrying his daughter. He shook his head and said, "However, they all died in my hands in the end. You're not the first, and you won't be the last." "Is that so?" Not only was Di Xianling not angry, he smiled instead. At the next moment, the void shook violently, and a terrifying crack appeared in the void in front of the two of them. An aura that suppressed heaven and earth spread out. Under everyone's gaze, a figure slowly walked out of the crack. That person's long golden hair seemed to be burning with divine fire. The great Qi Emperor Jiang Juexian. At that moment, everyone sucked in a breath of cold air at the same time, and their eyes trembled. "Yi, you killed my son Yi Chen." The Emperor of Great Qi, Jiang Juexian, glared at Yi Chen like two heavenly swords. "If I don't kill you today, how am I going to face the world?" As soon as these words were spoken, the expressions of many people changed, and they faintly noticed that something was off. Jiang Juexian did not appear earlier or later. He just had to appear when Yi Chen was about to fight Di Xianku. "Fellow Jiang." The eyes of the Grand Xia Emperor sank. He said indifferently, "Today is the battle between Emperor Lord Yi and Di Xianku. What do you want to do?" Facing the questioning of the Emperor of Grand Xia, Tianzi Hua, Jiang Juexian looked at him coldly and said, "Emperor Hua, I am avenging my son. Why should I care about the occasion? Could it be that you want to stop me? If you want to take revenge, we naturally have no objections." The Grand Xia Emperor furrowed his brows slightly as he spoke in a deafening voice. "But isn't today's occasion a little inappropriate? You can wait until the battle between Emperor Lord Yi and Emperor Xianxiang is over." What a joke! A hint of mockery appeared at the corner of Jiang Juexian's mouth. "Emperor Hua, my goal is to kill Yi, not to fight him one-on-one. Why should I care about fairness when it comes to my enemies?" As soon as he finished speaking, Emperor Hua's expression changed slightly as if he had realized something. Zi Kunlun said calmly, "Jiang Juexian, are you saying that you want to join forces with Di Xianxiang and fight 2 against 1? So what?" Jiang Juexian admitted it openly. "Even if we take 10,000 steps back, if Yi dies in the hands of Di Xianxiang, wouldn't my son's revenge be in vain?" As soon as these words were spoken, the crowd below burst into an uproar. Clearly, they did not expect such a change in the battle. "What do you want to do? We have no objections." Zi Kunlun, the lord of the North Sea Hall, slightly nodded his head and said in a mocking tone, "But you are still the lord of the Great Qi imperial dynasty, yet you joined hands with someone else. If this gets out, I'm afraid you will be the laughingstock of the world. Who dares to laugh at me?" When Jiang Juexian heard this, his incomparably dignified gaze swept across the crowd below. His voice was like thunder that shook people's hearts, and no one dared to look directly at him. It was over. Emperor Yi was finished this time. Many people shook their heads secretly. Most people did not think highly of Yi Chen's battle with Di Xianxiang. Now that Jiang Juexian had joined in, what chance did he have? Yi Chen's expression was calm from the beginning to the end. At this moment, a faint voice came from the 9 floating islands. "Brother Yi, as long as you agree to my previous condition, I will join forces with you to fight the 2 of them." End of this chapter. Chapter 1249. Everyone looked in the direction of the voice and saw the great Qin Emperor looking at Yi Chen with a faint smile. As his voice fell, Jiang Juexian and Di Xianke's eyes darkened. Di Xianke looked at Ing coldly and said, Ing, you both Jiang Juexian and Di Xianke were afraid of Ying's combat strength. The three of them had fought more than once. Ing ignored Di Xianke's gaze and looked at Yi Chen. Brother Yi, what do you think? Yi Chen lifted his eyes slowly and looked at him calmly. No one could tell what he was thinking at all. Promise him, promise him. Countless people clenched their fists and almost shouted. To them, Yi Chen would definitely die if it was a 2-on-1 fight. He might still have a chance of survival if he won. Jiang Juexian and Di Xianke's faces were also extremely tense. Under everyone's gaze, a smile suddenly appeared on Yi Chen's face. Subsequently, he said word by word, I'm sorry. I told you that I won't interfere with your matter. As soon as he finished speaking, the entire place fell into a dead silence. Countless people widened their eyes and looked at Yi Chen in disbelief. They thought they had heard wrong. The smile on Ying's face slowly froze. He moved and landed beside Jiang Juexian. Ying stared straight at Yi Chen and said expressionlessly, Brother Yi, you trespassed into my great Qin dynasty's capital a few days ago and killed the innocent. I want an explanation from you. As soon as these words came out, it was like a stone that caused 1,000 ripples. Everyone felt as if their minds were being bombarded by lightning. Ying also joined the battle. Moreover, he was going to join forces with Di Xianke and Jiang Juexian to fight Yi Chen? This meant that it was 3 against 1. In an instant, countless people were terrified to death. After Ying Zai said that, he stared at Yi Chen's expression. Brother Yi, have you ever regretted it? Regret? Yi Chen squinted and looked into his eyes. I've said it a long time ago that I won't interfere in your business, and I won't let you interfere in mine. That was his bottom line. Yi Chen had always stayed away from Ying, so he did not want to get involved. What a pity! Ying shook his head slightly and looked at him with pity. You and I have known each other for a long time. I didn't expect to become enemies today. Foster father. Shi Qianhan couldn't help but shout from below. 3 Emperor's Throne stage fighters teamed up to fight Yi Chen. In his opinion, Yi Chen had no chance of winning at all. The North Sea Hall Master Zi Kunlun sighed softly. Just as he was about to step forward, he saw a purple serpent flying over from the horizon. The purple flood dragon's majestic body seemed to cover the entire world. It faintly emitted a monstrous aura that caused everyone's hearts to tremble. Old man Baiming, you want to interfere? The purple flood dragon spoke in the human language, its voice shaking thousands of miles. Then, it turned into an old man dressed in black and landed next to Jiang Juexian. Demon Lord Fu Yuntian. Everyone was shocked to the core. The hall master stared at the old man with a dark expression. Fu Yuntian, you still dare to appear before me? There had always been a deep hatred between the North Sea Dragon Subduing Hall and the Demon Realm. This hatred had lasted for thousands of years. In these thousands of years, there had been countless deaths and injuries on both sides. Old man Baiming. Demon Lord Fu Yuntian smirked coldly. I'm not here to fight you today. As he said that, he pointed at Yi Chen. This brat took away someone from my demon realm. I'm here for him. At that moment, Xiao Hei's expression changed. He looked at Fu Yuntian with a ferocious gaze. After he descended to the ancient desolate realm, he wandered into the demon realm and accidentally entered the demon emperor's tomb to obtain the inheritance. Fu Yuntian tried to control him and seize the inheritance in his body. Everyone was so shocked by the series of changes that they were speechless. Looks like you're here to kill me too. Yi Chen looked at Fu Yuntian coldly. You came at the right time. I've wanted to go to the demon realm to get an explanation from you a long time ago. You've saved me the trouble of making a trip myself today. You're still boasting shamelessly even when you're about to die. Fu Yuntian smirked coldly. Don't forget that you won't even have a chance to escape today when 4 Emperor's Throne powerhouses join forces. Who else wants to kill me? Yi Chen looked around and glanced at every single figure. Step forward. I'll take care of all of you. The North Sea Palace Master, the great Xia Emperor, and the rest sighed softly and chose to remain silent. Even though the two of them had a good impression of Yi Chen, they knew very well that even if they attacked, it would be useless in such a situation. I want to kill you as well. At this moment, the Clear Sky Sword Master, Du Xing, who was on the 9 floating islands, rode a sword gleam and arrived. He glared at Yi Chen coldly with killing intent. You killed my Clear Sky Sword Sect's disciple, Li Qingtan. You'll pay for Qingtan's death today. With the addition of the Clear Sky Sword Master, Du Xing, the entire Mount Tangwu fell into an abnormal silence. 5 Emperor's Throne Powerhouses. All 5 Emperor's Throne Powerhouses wanted to kill Yi Chen. Moreover, they had a grudge against Yi Chen. In the entire ancient desolate realm, this was the first time such a huge scene had happened in the past 5,000 years. Everyone was shocked. They could not help but look at Yi Chen sympathetically as if they were looking at a dead man. Very well. Yi Chen's expression remained unchanged like ice that would not melt for 1,000 years. Today, 5 more Emperor's Throne Powerhouses will die under my hands. The world was silent and no one spoke. Everyone thought that Yi Chen was crazy. He dared to boast so shamelessly while facing 5 Emperor's Throne Powerhouses alone. What else could he be if not crazy? Shi Qianhan clenched his fists tightly, his nails piercing into his flesh. Brother Yi, I hate you. I hate you so much. I hate myself for not being able to share your burden. If you want to kill my master, kill me first. Xiao He roared and transformed into a black dragon that soared into the sky. It stood in front of Yi Chen to protect him. Its monstrous might was fighting the 5 Emperor's Throne Powerhouses alone. You think you can do that with this beast? Jiang Juexian sneered and looked at Xiao He. I still lack a mount. If you're willing to submit, I can spare your life. However, Xiao He's furious roar responded to him. The 9 eagle phoenix below let out a long cry and transformed into its true form. It landed next to Yi Chen. I won't allow you to kill my master. 9 eagle phoenix. Di Xuanxiang, who had never spoken, took a deep look at the 9 eagle phoenix and said expressionlessly, You're the Jade Lake Sacred Land's holy mountain guardian beast. Logically speaking, you have an irreconcilable grudge with Yi. Why do you want to die with him? Even Yi Chen could not help but look at the 9 eagle phoenix in surprise. He did not expect the latter to be willing to support him in such a situation. Di Xuanxiang. The 9 eagle Luan said expressionlessly, Don't waste your breath. I want to see how capable you, the ruler of the great Yin imperial dynasty, are. Although it said that, it was secretly complaining. There was nothing it could do. Its soul blood was in Yi Chen's hands. Secondly, it realized that Yi Chen had been very calm from the beginning to the end, as if he was confident. Could not see through him, so it could only take the risk. Very well. Since that's the case, the 3 of you shall die here today. Di Xuanxiang narrowed his eyes slightly, and shocking killing intent burst out of his eyes, causing the atmosphere in this area to turn completely cold. Everyone, let's attack together and kill them. Jiang Juexian shouted. A thick emperor's might that could shake heaven and earth erupted from his body and pressed down on Yi Chen. What a pity, the North Sea Hall Master, the great Xia Emperor, and the rest looked at each other and saw the pity in each other's eyes. To them, Yi Chen had reached the Emperor's throne stage at such a young age. In the future, he might be able to reach a higher level. Who would have thought that he would die here today? Senior brother Yi. Mo Hongxiu's eyes were red. Although she had just met Yi Chen gave her a very approachable feeling along the way. Just like a big brother, she really did not want to see Yi Chen bleed here. On the other hand, Mo Rong and the rest did not care. It's over. Yin Wuhan, the great Yin Emperor, who was next to him, revealed a cruel smile as if he could see Yi Chen's soul being destroyed. Just when the great battle was about to break out, a delicate cry suddenly exploded in the vast sky. "Who dares to kill my son-in-law?" This sudden voice caused the battle to freeze. Everyone, including Jiang Juexian and the other four, suddenly looked towards the southeast horizon. There was a giant purple gourd flying across the sky. It was like a blazing sun that pushed aside the clouds and mist, emitting a divine light that reached the heavens. Its momentum was astonishing. End of this chapter. Chapter 1250. He heard that vaguely familiar voice. Yi Chen looked over as well. He saw a small figure in divine clothes on the giant purple gourd. Is it that girl? In an instant, Yi Chen's calm face could not help but reveal a hint of shock. Under everyone's gaze, the giant purple gourd approached from afar, and two figures slowly descended from it. The leader was a young girl. She was wearing a colorful divine robe, and her entire body was surging with intense divine light. She walked over slowly, giving off the feeling that a dazzling sun had descended into the mortal world. The new saintess of the Divine Light Palace, Yan Jure? Almost at that moment, Jiang Juexian and the others exclaimed in unison, as if they were extremely surprised. Someone below sucked in a breath of cold air. Clearly, they had recognized the identity of the person. The Divine Light Palace was a special force in the extreme north of the ancient, desolate realm. They believed in light. They never participated in the grudges of the outside world, but they did not dare to let outsiders look down on them. The young girl in divine clothes was the new saintess of the Divine Light Palace, Yan Jure. She had awakened the body of light that was rare in the Divine Light Palace in 1,000 years. Behind the young girl was a barefooted old man. The old man was dressed simply and had an ordinary appearance. He had a red nose and a purple gourd on his waist. He gave off the feeling that he was an alcoholic. However, his appearance made Di Xianming and the other four extremely fearful. It was because the other party was the patriarch of the Divine Light Palace, an existence that no one knew how long he had lived for. Under everyone's gaze, the young girl in the colorful divine clothes who was walking at the front rushed all the way to Yi Chen and threw herself into Yi Chen's arms. "Son-in-law, Jure finally sees you again." The young girl was like a koala bear. She grabbed onto Yi Chen tightly as if she was afraid that he would run away. Her dreamy voice rang out. As soon as that was said, the entire place fell into dead silence. Countless people were so shocked that their jaws almost dropped. They could not believe this scene. Even Di Xianming and the others were no exception. The dignified saintess of the Divine Light Palace actually called Yi Chen son-in-law? Moreover, her words and actions were so intimate? Seeing this scene, the barefooted old man at the side seemed to be helpless. He could only pick up the purple gourd at his waist and gulp it down. Feeling the warmth coming from his hand, Yi Chen pulled his hand out and patted the little girl's head. He said while smiling, "You're still the same as before." It had only been a month since they last saw each other, but the young and inexperienced girl had completely grown into a beautiful girl with peerless talent. A crafty glint flashed through Jiu Er's eyes. Then, she deliberately puffed out her chest. "Son-in-law, am I really the same as before?" Yi Chen was speechless. Then, he seemed to have thought of something and said while retracting the smile on his face, "Your young mistress." He didn't know how to explain Mu Caiwei's matter to this girl. Perhaps this matter could become a barrier between the two of them. "Son-in-law, I understand." Jiu Er's body stiffened slightly, and tears immediately flowed down her cheeks. "I tried to persuade young miss not to cultivate that cultivation method, but she didn't listen. She even quarreled with me. A month ago, she and Mu Caiwei were brought to the Light Palace and the Jade Lake Sacred Land respectively. Half a month later, Jiu was tested to have a body of light, alarming the Light Patriarch and becoming the saintess of the Light Palace. The smart and quick-witted Jiu was extremely favored by the Light Patriarch, so she took the opportunity to visit Mu Caiwei in the Jade Lake Sacred Land. The Light Patriarch personally escorted her in secret. Jir rushed to the Jade Lake Sacred Land to see Mu Kaiwei happily, but she found out that the latter was in closed-door cultivation, leaving Meng Meng behind. At that time, Jiu'er noticed that something was wrong. When Mu Kaiwei came out of closed-door cultivation, she realized that the latter's personality had changed drastically. She had become cold and heartless. After Jiu'er found out the reason, she persuaded Mu Kaiwei to give up cultivating. However, the latter, who was blinded by hatred, refused to listen. In the end, they parted on bad terms. Even if Jiu'er suggested bringing Meng Meng to the Light Palace and letting her take care of her, Mu Kaiwei would not allow it. As Jiu'er told him what happened while crying, Yi Chen's gaze when he looked at her became much gentler. He had done so much for Mu Kaiwei. In the end, Mu Kaiwei could not compare to this maidservant who used to follow him and call him son-in-law. Son-in-law, don't blame young mistress any more. Jiu'er wiped her tears and pleaded. Young mistress thought you were dead and wanted to avenge you. That's why she became like that. I've let it go a long time ago. Yi Chen shook his head lightly. At that moment, Sword Master Clear Sky interrupted him with a cold smile. You're about to die and you're still in the mood to flirt with me? Jiu'er turned around and glared at him with her almond-shaped eyes. Old man, who are you talking about? B*****. Sword Master Clear Sky was furious. Di Xianming looked at the barefoot old man who was drinking and frowned. Is the Light Palace going to interfere in today's matter? Before the barefoot old man could speak, Jiu'er hugged Yi Chen tightly and said to the barefoot old man, Old man, if son-in-law dies, I won't live any more. I say, little girl, didn't you promise me before we came? The barefoot old man smiled helplessly. I don't care. Jiu'er bit her lip and said stubbornly, If you don't help son-in-law today, I'll kill myself in front of you. Let's see where you'll find a better successor than me. Yi Chen looked at the little girl who was protecting him quietly. A warm feeling flowed through his heart. The barefoot old man fell silent when he heard that. Then, he looked at Jiang Juexian and the rest. Guys, give me some face and let's forget about today's matter. Radiant Patriarch, don't you think too highly of yourself? Demon Lord Fu Yuntian sneered. You're about to die. How can you have so much face? Di Xianming said expressionlessly, Brother, as long as you leave with your men today and don't interfere in this matter, we won't stop you. So, there's nothing to talk about? The barefoot old man glanced at the five of them and sighed softly. Then I'll have to exercise my muscles today. As soon as he said that, the world fell silent. He still wanted to help Yi Chen despite knowing that the 5 Emperor's throne stage powerhouses would definitely kill him. Thank you, old man. Jiu'er cried tears of joy and said, Don't worry. When you die, I'll definitely visit your grave every year. The barefoot old man was speechless. How arrogant! A cold glint surged in Jiang Juexian's eyes. Radiant Patriarch, don't forget that even with you, there are only 2 of you. How can you be a match for the 5 of us? As soon as he said that, everyone could not help but nod subconsciously, as if they agreed. That was right. Even with the Radiant Patriarch, it was still 2 against 5. There was still no chance of winning. What if I'm included? Right at this moment, deafening laughter came from the sky. Fellow Yi, I'm here. Hurry up and welcome me. Under everyone's gazes, a black shadow appeared in the sky. As the black shadow approached, everyone saw that it was a sedan chair floating in the air. Only then did everyone see that it was a palanquin floating in the air. However, the palanquin did not have a roof and was exposed to the air. A palanquin was carried by 4 white-clothed women as they walked through the air. On the palanquin, there was a black-clothed young man lying on his back. Each of his hands was holding a delicate woman. Other than that, there were 2 women peeling grapes and putting one into the young man's mouth from time to time. Not bad, not bad. Serve me well. If I'm happy, I might even give you a few pills to eat. The air was filled with the young man's almost lewd laughter. At that moment, everyone was dumbfounded. P.S. The 3rd chapter has been updated for today. By the way, I said that I would update 5 chapters the next day. I did it. I didn't say that I would always update 5 chapters in the future. If I'm in good condition, I'll write more. If I'm in bad condition, I'll try my best to keep updating 3 chapters. End of this chapter. Chapter 1251. Almost as soon as the Yellow Spring Patriarch appeared, at a place hundreds of thousands of miles away from Mount Tangwu, the river was gurgling and the sound of waves was endless. 2 figures were sitting by the river. They were 2 old men, and there was a fire in front of them. The aroma of grilled fish filled the air. The sloppy old Taoist on the left didn't care about how hot his hands were. He held a roasted fish in one hand and wolfed it down. That's the third one. The gray-robed old man on the right looked in the direction of Mount Tangwu. He seemed surprised. Old Chi, you're right. That person from a Huang kingdom has appeared. Old man, I don't mean to nag, but you're already so old. Why are you worrying so much? The sloppy old Taoist rolled his eyes and said in a muffled voice, You should learn from me. You should eat and drink as you should. If you were to kick the bucket one day, your life would not have been in vain. You've been eating for thousands of years. The gray-robed old man shook his head helplessly. He frowned and said, Even with the light patriarch and that person from a Huang kingdom, there are only 3 of us. Our chances of winning aren't high. The sloppy old man wiped his greasy hands on his clothes. He picked his teeth and said, If we have to fight 5 to win, why should we pay attention to that brat? The gray-robed old man remained silent. Don't forget. The sloppy old man scoffed. Although the situation might change if we join the battle, that person from the academy has been looking for us. The gray-robed old man's expression changed when he heard that. He seemed to be extremely fearful of that academy master. The sloppy old man said with a toothpick in his mouth, If we fight, that person from the academy won't just sit by and watch. The situation will be even more troublesome. He turned around and said to the girl with the birthmark who was fishing by the river, Shaoman, give your Aunt Master Pan a big carp. The girl with the birthmark responded with an oh. She stared at the water with the steel fork in her hand. Suddenly, she noticed that there was a thick fog on the originally clear river. A figure slowly walked over from the thick fog. It seemed to be a man in a green robe. He looked to be in his 20s and was very young. The girl with the birthmark quietly looked at him because she discovered that there was a trace of a special charm about this person. Even though he was a man, his eyes were beautiful to the point of being ethereal. In that instant, the sloppy old Taoist and the old man who had been sitting on the riverside stood up at the same time and looked at the newcomers with serious expressions. The green-robed man did not seem to notice the gazes of the 3 people. He calmly walked to the side of the fire and sat down. He looked at the golden fish roasted on the fire and asked, Can I eat it? His voice was soft and magnetic. The sloppy old man looked at him calmly. You still came looking for me. The fish is going to be burnt. The green-robed man stretched out his hand and flipped the rod. He said softly, My Jixia Academy also has fish in the back mountain. It's better than this. Follow me back. Kuyunzi, you and I are both food in the eyes of others. Why do you have to force us? Why are you willing to be a dog? The gray-robed elder's lips moved slightly, almost as if he was complaining. Back then, my master Dong Li and you were close friends. Eat. The green-robed man's expression did not change. His aura was refined, as if he did not belong to the human world. He was as ethereal as a true immortal. At the peak of Mount Tangwu. At this moment, everyone widened their eyes as they looked at the gigantic palanquin in the sky that looked like a pair of wings that covered the sky. Chunlan, Xia, Qiuju, Dongmei, use more strength. You guys are so soft. Could it be that the patriarch didn't feed you guys enough last night? Yes. That's it. Use more strength. The patriarch of hell sat alone on the palanquin, allowing the palanquin to be carried in the air. He hugged the women on his left and right, enjoying the bliss of having multiple partners. Everyone stared at this scene with their mouths agape. Where did this weird combination come from? Even among the hundreds of thousands of people watching the battle, there was no lack of peerless sect leaders, but they had never seen such an appearance. Patriarch, a look of shock flashed across Yi Chen's calm face. Subsequently, he seemed to have thought of something. Did he break through? The Patriarch is awesome. Xiao He blurted out. Who are you? Stop right now. Seeing that the Patriarch of Hell and the others were heading straight for the top of the mountain, the experts of the Great Yin Imperial Dynasty took a step forward in an attempt to stop them. Boom! That person erupted with the cultivation of a 9-revolution martial saint, and a terrifying pressure charged straight at the 4 women carrying the palanquin. The Patriarch of Hell did not care at all. He waved his sleeve. Where did this old dog come from? How dare he stop the Patriarch's carriage? Bang! With a loud bang, the 9-revolution martial saint's body immediately let out a crisp sound that sounded like porcelain shattering. He let out a blood-curdling scream before his body exploded, turning into a bloody mist that completely disappeared. Dead silence. The world suddenly fell into dead silence. Everyone widened their eyes in disbelief as they looked at the black-clothed young man on the palanquin. He killed a 9-revolution martial saint with a raise of his hand. An Emperor's Throne powerhouse. This person must be an Emperor's Throne powerhouse. At that moment, the expressions of all the Emperor's Throne powerhouses, including Di Xianming, Jiang Juexian, and the other 4, changed. When it was less than 3,000 meters away from the top of the mountain, the palanquin suddenly stopped. Little beauties, wait here for the Patriarch. I'll come back to torment you guys after the fight. As the laughter faded, the black-clothed young man in the palanquin swayed. He shot straight to the top of the mountain and landed next to Yi Chen in the end. Fellow Yi, it's my turn to save you now, right? The Patriarch of Hell chuckled as he looked at Yi Chen. There was a hint of reluctance on his face. I haven't enjoyed myself enough in a Huang kingdom. When I heard that you were fighting someone, I was afraid that you would be killed, so I rushed over. Congratulations, Patriarch. Yi Chen chuckled softly and congratulated him sincerely. Naturally, he could tell that the Patriarch had already stepped into God transformation stage. Even though he was mentally prepared, there was still a ripple in his heart. The former's speed was simply too fast. He had always benefited from the secret treasure left behind by the founding empress of a Huang kingdom. Everyone looked at that scene in disbelief. They did not expect Yi Chen to know an Emperor's Throne powerhouse. Moreover, looking at the two of them, they seemed to be close. However, who was this Emperor's Throne powerhouse? Why had they never heard of him? In an instant, countless people's minds raced. Fellow, may I know who you are? At that moment, Jiang Juexian, who could not hold it in any longer, looked straight at the Patriarch of Hell and probed. Today is a personal grudge between us and Yi. I hope you won't interfere. The eyes of Di Xuanxiang and the rest flickered. From the scene of the Patriarch killing the 9-revolution martial saint with a raise of his hand, they were already certain that the Patriarch was an Emperor's Throne powerhouse. However, they did not know where the Patriarch came from. Only Ying's expression remained unchanged. He seemed to know about the existence of the Patriarch of Hell. What Tao? The Patriarch of Hell sneered with a peerless dominance. Today, I'll make it clear. Whoever dares to touch fellow Yi, I'll kill them. If you like Evil Dad in the city, please collect. Evil Dad in the city. Chapter 1252. You're courting death. Sword Master Great Heaven's expression turned cold as he stared at the Patriarch of Hell with killing intent. Even with you, there are only 3 of you. How can you stop the 5 of us? Old thing. The Patriarch of Hell narrowed his eyes, and a cold glint shot out from them. Do you have a daughter? Sword Master Great Heaven did not know why he asked such a question, but he still sneered and said, Not only do I have a daughter, but I also have dozens of granddaughters. Very well, I'll kill you later. The Patriarch of Hell suddenly grinned. I'll kill my way into your Great Heaven's sword sect and kill all your daughters. You're courting death. Sword Master Great Heaven was furious, and his sword chi was like a flood. Why? You're not convinced? The Patriarch of Hell glanced at him and said domineeringly, I'll suppress you with one hand later. Do it. Di Xuanxiang narrowed his eyes and his expression was extremely indifferent. There are only 3 of them. No matter what, they're no match for us today. Do it. At that moment the 5 of them attacked at the same time. 5 waves of Emperor might soared into the sky, and the space in front of them collapsed directly. Kill. Yi Chen suddenly shouted coldly, You're the ones who forced me to start a massacre. Today, I'll kill the 5 of you trash, slaughter your juniors, and destroy your orthodoxy. Kill. The killing intent of the Patriarch of Hell and the Patriarch of Light shook the sky. Rumble, 8 waves of Emperor might collided with each other. For a moment, heaven and earth shook as if the sky was about to collapse. It shocked the people below. Ing roared at the sky. He bared his fangs, and corpse energy soared into the sky. A pair of purple-gold bone wings swept across the sky and charged at Yi Chen. Let me fight you, the greatest emperor in history. The Patriarch of Hell spoke. He waved his sleeve, and the void cracked. He actually took the initiative to face Ing. You! Ing sneered. His voice shook heaven and earth. A pair of purple-gold bone wings caused the sky to tremble as he charged at the Patriarch of Hell. Jiang Juexian, your opponent is me. The radiant Patriarch stepped into the air with his bare feet. He held the purple gold gourd in his hand and slowly took a sip of wine. Jiang Juexian had no choice but to be on guard. In an instant, as Ing and Jiang Juexian were entangled, only Di Xianku, Demon Lord Fu Yuntian, and Clear Sky Sword Master Du Xing were left. I've already said that even if you have 2 more helpers, they still won't be able to save you. In the end, you won't be able to escape death. Di Xuanming's Emperor might shook the heavens. He led the Sword Master of Great Heaven and the other person behind him and charged at Yi Chen in a square formation. Yi Chen's expression remained the same as he passed his daughter to the 9 Condor Luan next to him. The 9 Eagle Luan had lived for countless years. Its cultivation was higher than the 9 Revolution Martial Saint Realm, but it was below the Emperor's Throne Realm. Unless an Emperor's Throne Realm expert made a move, no one could do anything to it. Moreover, the soul blood of the 9 Eagle Phoenix was still in his hands, so he was at ease handing his daughter over to the former. Go, Daddy! The little girl did not make a fuss and allowed the 9 Carving Phoenix to carry her to the side. She stared at Yi Chen with her dark eyes. I'll kill all of you today. Yi Chen watched the scene expressionlessly and said coldly, Let the ancient desolate realm know that I, Yi Chen, am not to be bullied. As soon as he finished speaking, he took a step forward. And it was precisely this step that caused his entire figure to change greatly. He was covered in golden divine robes, and no matter if it was his hair or his face, they were all suffused with a divine glow that reached the heavens. It was as if he was covered in pure gold. It was the true form of the Night Demon battle armor. At the same time, a strand of supreme dignity and a terrifying aura that vowed to annihilate everything emanated from his body and swept through the heavens and the earth. The people below were first shocked by his transformation, and then their hearts were filled with endless shock and excitement. Had this unprecedented battle finally begun? Whoosh! A beam of sword light shot into the sky, tearing through the clouds and tearing the void apart. That was the embodiment of the supreme sword intent. You still dare to boast shamelessly in the face of death. Sword Master Haotian held a Dao sword in his hand, and slashed at Yi Chen as if he was going to slash the sky down. That aura was too terrifying. Yi Chen was fearless. He took another step forward and crossed 3,000 meters. He slapped with his hand and covered the sky with one hand. He used his powerful physical strength to resist Sword Master Haotian's sword. Clang! As Yi Chen attacked, the huge hand slashed away Sword Master Haotian's sword chi directly. Then, it pushed him back under Sword Master Haotian's shocked gaze. What a powerful body! Sword Master Haotian's heart chilled. Roar! A purple dragon soared into the sky. It was incomparably huge, and every scale emitted a cold gleam. Its eyes were like pools of blood as it charged at Yi Chen with a monstrous, murderous aura. It was the demon lord, Fu Yuntian. Buzz! Yi Chen moved against the wind. His eyes were cold and merciless. He waved his fist and threw a punch. His punch was very slow, but it was so terrifying that it made one's soul tremble. It was as if the entire world could not withstand this punch. At that moment, Demon Lord Fu Yuntian, who had revealed his true form, felt a chill run down his spine. However, he was less than 30 meters away from Yi Chen at that moment. He had no choice but to shoot. Dragon fights in the wild. Demon Lord Fu Yuntian let out a dragon's roar. A pair of ferocious dragon claws that could crush a mountain descended from the sky and charged at Yi Chen. Rumble! Every time Yi Chen swung his fist, there was a power that could shatter heaven and earth. Every punch landed on Demon Lord Fu Yuntian's gigantic body. The earth-shattering might cause the hundreds of thousands of people below to fall silent. The shock in their hearts erupted like an avalanche. This was an Emperor's Throne powerhouse. Any Emperor's Throne powerhouse was an existence that stood at the peak of the ancient, desolate realm. In their eyes, all living beings were no different from ants. In the distance, Hall Master Baiyun, the great Xia Emperor, and the rest stared at this scene intently, afraid that they would miss any detail. The battle between Emperor's Throne powerhouses was also useful to them. They could use the process to understand their own shortcomings. Brother Yi. Shi Qianhan watched the scene uneasily. He was afraid that something would happen to Yi Chen. After all, his opponents were 3 Emperor's Throne powerhouses. Senior Brother Yi, you can do it! Mo Hongxiu clenched her fists tightly, her expression extremely nervous. Yin Wuhan, who was beside her, could not help but sneer when he saw this. Just as everyone was silent, an earth-shattering roar rang out. No! This roar seemed to have spread throughout the entire Mount Tangwu, the great Yin imperial dynasty, and even the entire central continent. In the void, a huge purple figure suddenly exploded. A large amount of golden blood poured out, and the sky was instantly dyed golden. An Emperor's Throne powerhouse had fallen. Everyone's eyes instantly glazed over. That was the Demon Lord, Fu Yuntian. His body was blown up by Yi Chen's punch, and the former soul that escaped was shattered by Yi Chen's palm strike. Demon Lord? At that moment, Di Xuanxiang and Sword Master Haotian roared in unison, their eyes filled with disbelief. Even Ying and Jiang Juexian, who were fighting the Patriarch of Hell and the Patriarch of Light, were filled with extreme shock at that moment. He had blown up an Emperor's Throne powerhouse with a single punch. Chapter 1253. The Demon Lord was killed with a single punch? At this moment, on Mount Tangwu, there was an eerie silence in the sky and on the ground. Countless people stared at the blood mist in the sky with their mouths agape. In the end, their gazes fixed on the figure that looked like a supreme god walking in the world. That was an Emperor's Throne, a supreme figure that guarded the demon region. He was actually killed with a single punch? If they had not seen it with their own eyes, how could they believe what they saw? The North Sea Hall Master, the Great Xia Emperor, and the other neutral Emperor's Throne cultivators were also shocked. Too powerful! Shi Qianhan was also extremely shocked as he muttered to himself, Emperor's Throne, son-in-law is invincible. Jior was filled with admiration. Mo Hongxiu's beautiful eyes widened. Senior Brother Yi is so powerful? Mo Rong and the rest behind her were already stunned. Only their violently constricted pupils showed that their emotions were fluctuating like a tide. How is this possible? Yin Wuhan, the Emperor of Great Yin, revealed a look of disbelief. This malefic has become stronger again. The 9 Condor Phoenix, who was hugging Meng Meng, sucked in a breath of cold air. Her eyeballs almost popped out. This brat is indeed very similar to the Eastly Emperor back then, ha ha. The dead silence was suddenly broken by a burst of wild laughter. The Patriarch of Hell, who was fighting with Yuing, laughed out loud. Good kill? Di Schwanka's face twitched, and his expression was terrifyingly gloomy. Sword Master Great Heaven, what are you waiting for? Attack with all your might and kill him. Although the Demon Lord died because he underestimated his enemy, Yi Chen's strength was beyond his imagination. He was sure that Yi Chen was not weaker than him. If he did not kill him today and gave him time to grow, he would definitely become a nightmare for them in the future. Thinking to this point, he let out a long roar and spat out a dragon pearl. It turned into a killing treasure and charged at Yi Chen directly. That's the kingdom-guarding dragon pearl. Someone stared fixedly at the dragon pearl, which was filled with supreme luck, and subconsciously cried out involuntarily. I didn't expect Di Schwanka to even take out the kingdom-guarding dragon pearl. Looks like he's made up his mind to kill Emperor Yi. The expressions of the North Sea Hall Master and the rest changed. Boom! Yi Chen's aura skyrocketed. His thick, white hair fluttered like a waterfall from the 9 heavens. He swung his fist and threw the 6 paths of reincarnation fist at the dragon orb. Boom! Deafening explosions rang out one after another. That one punch caused the surrounding space to collapse, the earth to crack, and the mountains to crumble into dust. Kill! The Great Heaven Sword Master took advantage of this gap and unleashed a peerless sword chi. The blood-colored killing sword slashed at Yi Chen's head like a heavenly river pouring down majestically. This scene was abnormally horrifying. He waved his sword with one hand as if he wanted to cut down the heavens and destroy everything. Sword Realm, this is the Sword Realm of Sword Master Clear Sky. The gaze of the Grand Xia Emperor froze. As the #1 swordsman in the ancient barren world, the Sword Master of Haotian used his swordsmanship to create a realm of sword. This realm enveloped his enemies and sword aura surged in all directions. Sacred Dragon Totem! At the same time, Di Xianming shouted. Endless Imperial Dragon energy shot toward the Dragon Pearl that was entangling Yi Chen. Buzz, the Dragon Pearl surged in the sky and vaguely transformed into a golden dragon that was 300 meters long. The dragon energy around its body was terrifying. It waved its dragon claws and charged at Yi Chen. Both of them are serious. Everyone was shocked, and their expressions were extremely solemn. A powerhouse's eyes lit up and he said, Emperor Yi is in danger. Di Xianming and the Sword Master of Haotian attacked from the front and back. Clearly, they wanted Yi Chen to be attacked from the back so that he would not have the chance to attack one of them. You're playing this trick with me? Yi Chen's eyes turned cold. Subsequently, his crystal-clear right hand clenched his fingers into a fist. He smashed the hammer into the sky and charged at the golden dragon shadow. He actually ignored the Sword Master of Haotian who was slashing at him from behind. Everyone was in an uproar. Is he crazy? He actually doesn't care about the Sword Master of Haotian behind him? Die! The Sword Master of Haotian roared. The golden sword in his hand clanged as it descended from the sky and landed accurately on Yi Chen's back. At the same time, a cold smirk could not help but appear at the corner of his lips. How dare you ignore my sword realm? You deserve to die without a complete corpse. Someone in the crowd cried out in shock and closed his eyes subconsciously, as if he could not bear to see the bloody scene that was about to happen. Clang, however, in the next moment, the Sword Master of Haotian's sword produced a dazzling golden gleam on Yi Chen's back as if it had hit an extremely hard object. In an instant, countless people were dumbfounded. What kind of terrifying body was that? Facing the Sword Master of Haotian's powerful sword, he was actually unscathed? What a powerful body! The North Ocean Hall Master and the Great Xia Emperor could not help but look at each other. They could see the shock in each other's eyes. How is this possible? The smile on Haotian's face froze. In the next moment it was covered by deep shock. Kacha, with a crisp sound, cracks appeared on the heavenly cloud Dao sword in his hand, and then it turned into fragments that scattered into the air. The series of changes happened in the blink of an eye. As Yi Chen's punch soared into the sky, it eventually landed on the giant golden dragon shadow. 6 paths of reincarnation fist. Rumble! This punch produced the sound of a huge copper striking a bell, as if it was going to shatter the world. He was invincible. Bang! Under this punch, the giant golden dragon phantasm and the dragon bead in the void exploded, turning into surging power that swept out in all directions like a tide. Blurg Di Xianming could not help but spit a mouthful of blood. He retreated continuously, and there was disbelief in his eyes when he looked at Yi Chen again. The kingdom-guarding dragon pearl that he had spent 1,000 years to refine to suppress the fortune of a country was shattered by a single punch from Yi Chen? Buzz, buzz, buzz! At that moment, Mount Tangwu began to shake violently. Everyone was shocked to discover that the imperial dragon energy on Di Xuanming's body was disappearing at a speed visible to the naked eye. Almost at that moment, the fortune of the entire Great Yin imperial dynasty was also dissipating crazily. This was a faint feeling, and the most direct effect was panic and depression. Countless ministers and commoners of the Great Yin imperial dynasty subconsciously prostrated themselves on the ground, looking at this scene with terrified expressions. The fortune has dissipated. The great Xia Emperor, Emperor Hua, was the most sensitive to this change. He muttered. Di Xianming used the kingdom-guarding dragon pearl to deal with Emperor Yi and tried to kill him with the fortune of a country. However, Emperor Yi shattered the dragon pearl and leaked the fortune of the Great Yin. Perhaps this is what it means to go for wool and come home shorn. The North Ocean Hall Master, Zi Kunlun, said in a murderous manner. If you like Evil Dad in the City, please collect. Evil Dad in the City. Chapter 1254. As the saying went, 1's life, 2's luck, 3's feng shui, 4's merit, and 5's studies. To a sect or a country, luck was too important. Whether it was Di Xuanxiang, Jiang Juexian, or the Emperor of Great Xia, Emperor Hua, they all viewed luck as the most precious thing. The decrease in luck meant the weakening of the country's power, and the scope of the country's power was too broad. The one who was affected the most was Di Xuanxiang, the emperor of the Great Xia dynasty. As expected, Di Xuanxiang's hair was disheveled at that moment. He glared at Yi Chen with resentment and sorrow. Yi, I swear I'm not human if I don't kill you. Even when Yi Chen killed 2 of his sons consecutively, he had never been so furious. However, the loss of luck made his heart ache like a knife was being stabbed. Kill! He roared, and the image behind him rose into the sky. It charged at Yi Chen like an immortal descending to the mortal world. Omnidirectional sword domain. Sword Master Great Heaven roared loudly. A sword appeared in his hand again. He slashed down, shaking everything. It was as if the sky was about to split open. Trying to do the same thing again? Yi Chen scoffed. Subsequently, he gestured with both hands to embrace the moon. A heavy mountain appeared in his palms. Although it was only the size of a palm, it was majestic and heavy. It had the power to destroy heaven and earth. It was the 5-element heavy mountain. Yi Chen took a step forward and smashed the 5-element heavy mountain in his hand at Sword Master Great Heaven. I'll show you what respect is next. Boom! The 5-element heavy mountain expanded in the wind, eventually turning into a 300-meter-tall mountain. It made people feel like Mount Tai was pressing down on them. They felt weak and could barely stand. What's that? Many people staggered under the pressure of the 5-element heavy mountain's aura and fell to the ground. Their faces were filled with shock. Is that a treasure? Zi Kunlun's eyes were like lightning as he stared at the 5-element heavy mountain. The latter gave him a sense of extreme danger at that moment. The mountain soared through the sky and rapidly enlarged. It was like an ancient demon mountain had descended to the world, and it instantly covered Sword Master Great Heaven. Buzz, the clear sky Sword Master's sword landed directly on the 5-elemental prison peak. What was unbelievable was that such a terrifying attack actually didn't cause any damage to the 5 elemental prison peak. It was as if the attack had been absorbed by the 5 elemental heavy peak. Not good. At that moment, the Clear Sky Sword Master was shocked to discover that there was an incomparably terrifying devouring power coming from the 5 elemental prison peak. His body moved uncontrollably towards the former. What made him even more terrified was that the vital energy in his body was pouring out in a frenzy. What is this? The Clear Sky Sword Master roared crazily, urging his cultivation with all his might in an attempt to break free from this shocking devouring power, but he discovered that it was of no use. In the eyes of the crowd, it looked like the Clear Sky Sword Master was charging toward the 5 elemental heavy prison peak in a suicidal manner. Fellow Taoist, ye stop. Let's talk this out. At that moment, the Clear Sky Sword Master finally panicked. His expression changed greatly as he said, "This old man is willing." Boom. Yi Chen did not give him a chance to beg for mercy at all. He drove the 5 elemental heavy prison peak down and crushed the Clear Sky Sword Master to death. His body was smashed beyond recognition. Even his soul was annihilated by the terrifying aftershock. The Clear Sky Sword Sect Master, the Clear Sky Sword Master, was dead. At this moment, the entire Mount Tangwu was dead silent. Everyone was in a daze, and they looked like they had seen a ghost. The Clear Sky Sword Master was killed just like that? The world shook, and everyone was shocked. The faces of the Clear Sky Sword Sect's powerhouses were filled with despair. In just a short period of time, 2 Emperor's Throne powerhouses had died in Yi Chen's hands. This was completely different from what everyone had expected. In everyone's opinion, Yi Chen had no chance of winning when 3 Emperor's Throne powerhouses joined forces to fight Yi Chen. However, the result was that Yi Chen killed 2 of them consecutively. How could this not shock everyone? Sword Master. Di Xuanke stopped abruptly, his expression terrifyingly ugly. Ying and Jiang Juexian, who were fighting the Patriarch of Hell and the Light Patriarch, could no longer hide the shock on their faces. Damn it, how can this brat be so powerful? Jiang Juexian almost roared. He could not accept the scene before him. For some reason, a faint chill suddenly emerged in his heart. 2 are dead. Under everyone's gaze, Yi Chen retracted the 5-element heavy prison peak and turned to look at Di Xuanke. His eyes were extremely cold. "It's your turn next." Di Xuanke's expression changed instantly, and the hair on his body stood on end uncontrollably. He had planned it well. The success rate of the 5 Emperor's Throne powerhouses working together to fight Yi Chen was almost 100%. Even with the addition of the Patriarch of Hell and the Light Patriarch, he was still extremely confident. After all, other than Ying and Jiang Juexian, he still had 3 people left. However, the result was unbelievable. Thinking to this point, his expression changed a few times. Then, he looked at Yi Chen with a burning gaze. "Fellow Yi, how about we drop this? As long as you're willing, the great Yin Imperial Dynasty will no longer be your enemy." At this point, his eyes flickered. "I can also help you kill Jiang Juexian and Ying. I also know an earth-shattering secret related to the ancient desolate realm." As soon as he said that, the expression of Jiang Juexian, who was being held back by the Light Patriarch, changed drastically. "Di Xuanke, you're shameless." He looked at Yi Chen on the verge of vomiting blood. "Fellow Yi, kill him. I'm willing to help you." On the other hand, Ying was expressionless. Yi Chen looked at Di Xuanke quietly and said with a sharp gaze, "Hand over your soul and I'll spare your life." As soon as he said that, Di Xuanke's expression suddenly turned cold. "Yi, do you really want to fight to the death with me?" Everyone watched this scene silently. Who would have thought that Yi Chen would force Di Xuanke to beg for mercy? Yi Chen's gaze turned cold. The 5-element heavy prison peak in his hand trembled, shaking the sky. It was about to leave his hand and kill everything. "All right, you forced me to do this. Seeing this, a hint of determination flashed through the depths of Di Xuanca's eyes. At the next moment, he took a step forward and waved his arm. People of the Great Yin, I need your strength. Raise your right hands and lend me your infinite strength to help me kill my enemies. This voice covered the world and spread in all directions, as if it had reached the distant unknown galaxy. At the same time, in the Hall of Immortality of the Great Yin Imperial Dynasty, all the civil and military officials knelt respectfully outside the Hall of Immortality. They watched in shock as endless providence flowed out of the Hall of Immortality. The providence is gone? An official muttered to himself. Does the heavens want to destroy the Great Yin? Where is the Emperor? Where is the Emperor? Countless people burst into tears. As officials of the Great Yin Imperial Dynasty, they naturally enjoyed the providence. Now that the providence was gone, what would happen to them? At this moment, a dignified and cold voice reverberated in everyone's mind. People of the Great Yin, I need your strength. Raise your right hands and lend me your infinite strength to help me kill my enemies. This voice was deafening, and it caused everyone to be jolted awake from their despair and bitter cries. It's the Emperor's voice. The Prime Minister of the Great Yin was excited. With that, he got up and knelt down heavily. He raised his right hand and said, Long live the Emperor, long live the Great Yin Empire. If you like Evil Dad in the city, please collect. Evil Dad in the city. Chapter 1255. Bam, 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 the officials behind him knelt 3 times and raised their right hands at the same time. Their voices were thunderous. Long live the Imperial Lord! Long live the Imperial Lord! This scene did not only happen in the imperial capital of Great Yin. It happened almost at the same time in various territories of the Imperial Lord of Great Yin. As long as they were citizens of Great Yin, they could vaguely hear Di Xianbing's voice. Long live the Imperial Lord! The Imperial Lord shall live as long as the heavens, he shall never die. Everyone raised their right hands and cheered loudly. Their eyes were filled with endless zeal for Di Xianbing. Buzz, 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 at that moment, rays of red light shot out of everyone's body. These rays converged into a great river that shot towards Mount Tangwu at the same time. These people immediately felt a sense of emptiness in their bodies, as if some kind of power had left their bodies. At the peak of Mount Tangwu, the sky rumbled and the weather changed. Rumble, under the astounded gazes of everyone, the red light that blotted out the sky shot over from all directions, and then all of it entered Di Xianling's body. What's that? Faith power? Such dense faith power. Di Xianbing seems to be getting stronger quickly. In an instant, the entire Tangwu mountain was filled with exclamations that sounded like thunder. He's extracting faith power. The Emperor of Great Xia's expression changed slightly. He immediately said, forcefully absorbing faith power from the people, Di Xianbing is really crazy. Whether it was the Imperial Lord of Great Xia or the Imperial Lord of Great Yin, the ruler of a country could not only control the fate of the country, but he could also borrow the faith power of billions of people in the country for his own use at crucial moments. This was similar to the power of incense in the mortal world. Every god had believers. When countless believers gathered together, the power of faith produced was faith power. This was also why the gods would build temples and open halls to receive incense and worship from the people. Even Hall Master Bei Yun could not help but shake his head. He doesn't care about the price. Looks like Di Xianbing is really crazy. Although forcefully extracting the power of faith could increase Emperor Xianku's strength, the consequences were extremely tragic. This was because the so-called power of faith was actually mental energy. Some people would die on the spot due to excessive mental energy consumption. As for Di Xianbing, once he passed his prime, he would enter a period of weakness. During this period, even a mortal would be able to kill him. This is the power of Joss flames? Yi Chen, who was the closest to Di Xianku, had the clearest sense of this change. His eyes narrowed immediately. He's willing to pay a huge price to fight me with a nation's incense. Boom. As the void shook, Di Xianku's aura grew stronger at a speed visible to the naked eye. Yi, you forced me to do this. In the end, a trace of his aura seeped out as he breathed, causing this space to faintly be unable to endure it. Bang, bang, bang. With a bang, the cliff cracked, and the ground sank 1,000 feet deep. Countless people could not help but prostrate themselves on the ground, and their faces were filled with shock. The Hall Master and the others unleashed their monarch auras at full power in an attempt to resist the pressure. However, they still took several steps back. So powerful! The great Xia Emperor sucked in a breath of cold air. Di Xianku has absorbed the power of faith of the great Yin. His current battle prowess is probably close to the divine treasure stage, right? Even if it's not enough, it's not far from it. The Hall Master resisted the pressure with all his might. His expression was extremely solemn. In the ancient desolate realm, above the Emperor's throne was the divine treasure. The so-called divine treasure was to hide one's soul in more than 30,000 acupuncture points in the body. Unless the body was completely destroyed to the point where not even ashes were left, one would be indestructible. At the same time, the Patriarch of Hell, Ying, the Light Patriarch, and Jiang Juexian stopped fighting at the same time and fixed their eyes on Di Xianku. They knew very well that the real battle was between Di Xianku and Yi Chen. Once the outcome of the battle was decided, it would affect their battle. At that moment Di Xianku's entire body was wrapped in dazzling golden light, as if a supreme god had descended into the world. Yi, go to hell! In the blink of an eye, he took a step forward and waved his hand to pierce through the void. He charged at Yi Chen with a mighty pressure and killing intent. Emperor Yi is in danger now, the great Xia Emperor said bluntly. Looks like Emperor Yi won't be able to escape death after all. Not only did he step into the Emperor's throne at such a young age, his battle prowess even surpasses those at the same level. What a pity! Everyone held their breaths and stared at Yi Chen. Their hearts could not help but hang in their throat. In the crowd below, Yin Wuhan, who had been paying attention to this scene, could not help but sneer. Yi is dead this time. Nonsense. Mo Hongxiu, who was beside him, glared at him angrily. How could senior brother Yi die? He will definitely win. Junior sister, Mo Rong and the rest hurriedly pulled her back. The situation is already very obvious. Don't lie to yourself. Under everyone's gaze, Yi Chen lifted his eyes and looked at Di Xianku quietly, who was charging at him with a murderous aura. His gaze was clear. You're just a piece of trash who borrowed the power of the human world. I no longer belong to the human world. I'm above heaven and earth. How can a mere power of the human world kill me? He took a step forward. If you want to kill me with the power of the human world, I'll let you experience this vast power of heaven and earth. After saying that, he bent his finger and grabbed at the void. Lightning! As soon as the word "come" was said, the law followed. Rumble, in an instant the weather changed and the world shook. A sea of clouds enveloped the entire Mount Tangwu, containing an aura that could destroy heaven and earth. Before everyone could react, Yi Chen stomped his feet again. Earth, come! Rumble, Mount Tangwu, which stretched for tens of thousands of kilometers, suddenly shook, as if an earth dragon had turned over. Everyone felt the ground beneath their feet shake non-stop, and their faces turned ashen. They thought that it was an earthquake. Buzz, buzz, buzz under everyone's shocked gazes. Surging earth-vein energy turned into yellow balls of light from all directions of the entire Mount Tangwu and surged toward Yi Chen. Then, they condensed into the shadow of a yellow mountain. What technique is this? Everyone turned pale with fright. Water, come! Yi Chen spat softly. At that moment, everyone lifted their heads to look. They saw countless rivers defying gravity and hanging majestically above Mount Tangwu. The scene was like a heavenly river pouring down. Fire, come! Wind, come! In my name I command wind, fire, thunder, lightning, and rain. Yi Chen chanted like a deity. In an instant, the heavenly thunder bombarded down mightily. The yellow shadow condensed into a mountain and poured down in torrents. The torrential river broke its dam and collapsed. At that moment, the world fell silent. In everyone's eyes, there was only that figure who was like a true immortal who had descended to the world, commanding the rules of heaven and earth like a servant. If you like Evil Dad in the City, please collect. Evil Dad in the City. Chapter 1256. Under the gazes of countless people, the terrifying power of heaven and earth enveloped Di Xianming. The entire world rumbled after an unknown period of time. After this series of might completely dissipated, everyone finally recovered. They looked around in shock. Who won? This was the question that everyone was most concerned about. My father must have won. Yin Wuhan, who had regained his senses, was the first to laugh out loud. My father has absorbed the power of faith. His battle prowess is comparable to a divine treasure. How can ye not die? As he spoke, he repeatedly looked at the void. Then, his tone suddenly froze, and the smile on his face froze. His eyes revealed deep fear. There was a thin figure with his hands behind his back, standing proudly in the air. That figure's body flickered with divine light, like a god. It was Yi Chen. At that moment, the entire world fell silent. There was dead silence as everyone looked at Yi Chen with admiration. Di Xianming is dead? Jiang Juexian activated his ocular technique, and his black eyes shot into the sky in an attempt to find traces of Di Xianming. However, the result terrified him. Under his ocular technique, not only was there no trace of Di Xianming, but even his aura was gone. It was as if he had disappeared from the world. Hall Master Beiyun, the great Xia Emperor, and the rest also tried their best to search, but they did not find anything. At this moment, they finally believed that Di Xianming was dead, and he had died in Yi Chen's hands. Everyone's eyes landed on Yi Chen at the same time as they thought to this point. There was shock and disbelief in their eyes, but most of it was respect. How is this possible? How is this possible? Yin Wuhan seemed to have lost his mind as he roared, Yi, how could you kill my father? Yi Chen turned his head to look when he heard that. A golden gleam flashed through his eyes. The golden gleam tore through the sky, and it cut the former's body and soul into two like blade qi. Well done, brother Yi. Shi Qianhan heaved a sigh of relief. His eyes were filled with admiration as he looked at Yi Chen. Mo Hongxiu, who was in the crowd below, was so excited that she almost danced with joy. Senior brother Yi won, senior brother Yi won. Beside him, Mo Rong and the other two could not speak for a long time. Only great waves of shock flashed in their eyes. Jiu'er smiled sweetly. I knew son-in-law would win. Congratulations, Imperial Lord Yi. The Emperor of Great Xia, Emperor Hua, was the first to stand out. He clasped his fists at Yi Chen. After this battle, Emperor Yi will be worshipped by the heroes of the world. Congratulations, Imperial Lord Yi. The North Sea Hall Master also stepped forward. Plop, thump, thump. In an instant, a series of loud noises resounded throughout the world. Then, the hundreds of thousands of people present all knelt down on one knee. We congratulate Emperor Lord Yi. A thunderous voice shook the clouds. At this moment, no one dared to mention Emperor Xianku's name, because the winner was king and the loser was a bandit. This was the cruelest rule of the cultivation world. Jiang Juexian was all smiles. Congratulations, Tharch Yi. From now on, Tharch Yi will be the number one in the ancient barren world. Jiang, you really know how to change your face. Yi Chen stared at him coldly. The killing intent in him did not decrease as he walked toward the former step by step. Jiang Juexian's expression changed slightly, and then he said, Emperor Yi, where it is possible to forgive and forget, one should forgive and forget. You and I are not enemies of life and death, and I have never attacked you from the beginning. I've always heard that the great Qi Sovereign Lord is shameless. Now that I've seen him today, he truly lives up to his reputation." The Radiant's ancestor sipped his wine and smiled faintly. Yi Chen looked at him coldly and scoffed softly. His divine consciousness surged. "Hand over your astral body and I'll spare your life. You want me to hand over my divine soul? Impossible." Jiang Juexian smirked. "Yi, I admit that I'm no match for you, but you can't stop me if I want to escape." As soon as he finished speaking, he flicked his sleeve and actually forcefully tore space apart as he left. Trying to escape? Yi Chen narrowed his eyes and was about to capture him. The Patriarch of Hell chased after him directly. "Fellow Yi, leave this guy to me." If one took a closer look, the Patriarch of Hell's speed was actually 30% faster than the former. At that moment, Ying was the only one left. Yi Chen walked over slowly and looked at him expressionlessly. "Ying, how are we going to settle the score between us?" "Do it." Ying's expression was calm, as if he was neither happy nor sad as he said, "The last time you fought me, you were lucky to defeat me. This time, I'd like to experience it for you." Yi Chen looked at him quietly. A few seconds later, he said slowly, "Leave. For the sake of the past, I'll let you go this time." He did not want to fight Ying. Firstly, both of them were from Earth, and they were Chinese. Secondly, Ying knew about the existence of the Forbidden Sea, so Yi Chen planned to keep him alive. Ying did not say a word. A pair of purple-gold bone wings flapped behind him, and he shot out 3,000 meters horizontally. Not long after, the Patriarch of Hell tore through space and arrived. He was slightly injured, but he was holding a head in his hand. It was Jiang Juexian's. In year 36,500 of the primordial era, Yi Chen fought 5 Emperor's throne stage powerhouses on Mount Tangwu. He killed 3 of the Emperor's throne stage powerhouses of the Great Yin's Emperor Lord. One of the remaining 2 died, and the other escaped. The news shook the primordial era. In the quiet room of the Jade Lake Holy Land, after Yi Chen returned with Jur and the rest, he asked the Patriarch to take care of the Light Patriarch and the rest while he entered the quiet room directly. He slowly opened his palm, revealing a ball of lightning that contained a terrifying power. There was a faint trace of a soul within it. If outsiders saw it, they would definitely be shocked speechless because it was Di Xuanming's soul. "Yi, since you're invincible, why didn't you kill me? Why did you deliberately protect my soul?" Di Xuanming's soul roared at Yi Chen hysterically. His eyes were filled with resentment. Then, he seemed to have thought of something and suddenly laughed out loud. I know. You must be trying to find the whereabouts of your wife, son, and parents, right? Since you've guessed it, tell me honestly." Yi Chen looked at him quietly. "I can promise that as long as you tell me everything you know, I'll let you reincarnate." "Ha ha ha, you'll die." Di Xianming laughed maniacally. "The closer you get to them, the faster you'll die. 10,000 years ago, the Eastly Emperor suppressed the primordial era alone. Everyone looked up to him. He was more than 10,000 times more monstrous than you, but he still couldn't escape death. You're no exception." "Stubborn." Yi Chen scoffed coldly. He opened his mouth and spat. A golden flame shot out instantly and enveloped Di Xuanming's soul. In the quiet room that was set up with a soundproof barrier, screams that sounded like the wailing of ghosts and the howling of wolves immediately rang out. Yi Chen's cold voice sounded, "If you don't tell me, I'll make your soul suffer for eternity. I'll make you beg for death." He might be able to use the soul-searching tactic on people who were much lower than him, but not on an emperor's throne powerhouse like Di Xianming. An hour later, Di Xianming finally could not take it anymore and relented. I'll tell you. Chapter 1257. Jade Lake Sacred Land, in an isolated room. "Speak. I'll keep my word." Yi Chen looked at Di Xuanming's soul in his hand with a burning gaze. He retracted the golden flame that wrapped around him. "Yi." Di Xuanming's soul was extremely dispirited. He suddenly looked at him with a complicated expression. I admit that you're very powerful. Your talent is comparable to the Eastly Emperor from 10,000 years ago. However, let me give you a piece of advice. The news I revealed today might kill you. Get to the point. Yi Chen's eyes turned cold. A hint of fear flashed through Di Xuanming's eyes. Then, he said slowly, more than a year ago, that ghost ship suddenly appeared in the Tianfeng Sea area. After we received the order, we immediately sent a large number of powerhouses to intercept it. At this point, he seemed to recall something and said, there were 5 people on the ghost ship at that time. 2 of them were women and 1 was a man. I think they were your family. Yi Chen nodded slightly. Including Su Yuhan and his parents, there were 3 of them. Then, he frowned and said, you guys? In other words, you're not the only one involved in this matter? That's right. Di Xianming nodded and said, other than the Great Yin Imperial Dynasty, there's also the Jade Lake Sacred Land, the Great Qi Imperial Dynasty, the Great Xia Imperial Dynasty, the North Sea Dragon Subduing Hall, the West World Pure Zen Sect, and so on. Yi Chen's eyes flashed. What happened after that? The powerhouses we sent fought an intense battle with the people on the ghost ship. Countless powerhouses died. Di Xianming said faintly. Most of them died in the hands of that crazy cultivator. He's suspected to be at the Emperor's throne stage. In the end, Jiang Juexian and I had no choice but to suppress him ourselves. Yi Chen took a deep breath in and said impatiently, where did you hide these people? At that moment, Di Xuanming's face was slightly distorted as if he was resisting something. We were also following orders. Your parents were taken away by Jixia Academy. Yi Chen was moved when he heard that. He enunciated word by word. Are you saying that my parents are in Jixia Academy? That's right. Di Xian said. From the beginning to the end, we were only participants. I was in charge of capturing your parents, and Jiang Juexian was in charge of capturing your wife. As for the crazy Taoist and the little girl, they were. At this point, his soul began to tremble as if he was enduring some kind of pain. No, I can't say. Yi Chen pointed a finger between his brows. Subsequently, countless black runes began to appear on Di Xuanming's soul. These runes were like dark chains, binding him tightly. Soul-restraining chains. At that moment, shock flashed through Yi Chen's eyes. Someone actually set up the soul-confining chain in your body. What a vicious method! The so-called soul-restraining chain was a method used in the cultivation world to imprison someone's soul so that they would never be able to betray their master. The strangest thing about this method was that when the person being imprisoned talked about something sensitive, it would automatically activate. I can't say, save me, save me. The black soul chains on Di Xuanming's body tightened, as if a pair of 5 elemental hands were secretly exerting force. The former was also in more and more pain, as if his soul could be destroyed at any time. Boom! In an instant, his soul shattered with a bang, and then turned into countless pieces that scattered everywhere. His soul was destroyed. The series of unforeseen events happened in the blink of an eye. Even Yi Chen could not stop it in time. Yi Chen's expression was extremely grim. He did not even know where Su Yuhan was, and Di Xuanming's soul was destroyed just like that. Who was it? Who could leave such a vicious method in an emperor's throne powerhouse's body and make Di Xianming unable to resist? He narrowed his eyes, and a cold gleam surged in the depths of his eyes. I don't care who you are. If Yuhan has anything to do with you, even if you're a true immortal, I'll kill you. In the Jade Lake Palace outside, Jior was feeding Meng Meng. This time, she had brought many spirit fruits from the Divine Light Palace. Like magic, she quickly became familiar with the little girl. Patriarch Yellow Spring directly moved the palanquin to the top of Yaoqi Mountain. The surroundings were filled with laughter and chatter. The Patriarch of Light chuckled as he walked over. He took a sip of wine and said, "May I know where you're from?" Why have I never seen you before? Just when the Patriarch of Hell was about to speak, he saw Yi Chen walk out of the quiet room. He said immediately, "Fellow Yi, did you find anything?" He knew that Yi Chen had left Di Xuanming's soul behind. Therefore, even after the battle ended, he stayed by Yi Chen's side and did not return to a Huang kingdom. Yi Chen shook his head lightly and lifted his head to look at the Patriarch of Light next to him. "Fellow Light, how much do you know about Jixia Academy?" The reason why he asked that was because Di Xianming had said before he died that his parents had been taken away by the people of Jixia Academy. Now that Di Xianming was dead, the remaining clues were gone. Therefore, he could only focus on Jixia Academy. Hearing the words Jixia Academy, the Patriarch of Light's expression froze slightly. "Fellow Yi, listen to me. You can't touch Jixia Academy." "Why can't I?" Yi Chen's eyes flickered. "I can't say anything else." The Patriarch of Light changed his attitude and shook his head repeatedly. Then, he turned to Juror and said, "Little girl, you've played enough. Shouldn't you come back with me?" The smile on Juror's face froze. She looked at Yi Chen reluctantly. "Young master." "Little girl, I'll go crazy with you. I hope you remember your promise to me." The Patriarch of Light forced a smile again. Yi Chen could not help but smile when he saw Juror's hesitation. "Go back with Fellow Light first. I'll visit you when I have the chance." Juror's beautiful eyes lit up when she heard that. She looked at him pitifully and said, "Young master, it's a deal. You must visit me." "All right." Yi Chen nodded. Jur then followed the Patriarch of Light and left the Jade Lake sacred land unwillingly. Yi Chen's eyes flickered nonstop as he watched the two of them leave. It seemed like the Patriarch of Light knew something, but he was unwilling to mention it. "Fellow Yi, what do you plan to do next?" The Patriarch of Hell walked over quietly. Yi Chen suddenly said, "Patriarch, take charge of the Jade Lake sacred land for now. I'm going out for a while." Since they were involved in the operation to encircle the ghost ship, not only were Di Xianming and the dead Jiang Juexian involved, but even the North Sea Dragon Subduing Hall was involved. He could go to the North Sea Dragon Subduing Hall to ask. Although the North Sea Dragon Subduing Hall did not take action during the battle at Mount Tangwu, he had a faint intention of befriending them. Perhaps he was a good breakthrough. If you like Evil Dad in the City, please collect Evil Dad in the City. Chapter 1258. As time passed, the news of the battle on Mount Tangwu gradually spread, eventually sweeping through the entire ancient, desolate realm. Did you know? The battle on Mount Tangwu has ended. Who won? Is it the Emperor of the Great Yin, Emperor Xianxiang? It must be Emperor Xianxiang. He has an imperial dynasty and became famous thousands of years ago. Although Emperor Yi killed the Jade Lake Holy Lord, he's still too young. No, Emperor Yi won. At that time, Emperor Xianxiang and the other two emperors joined forces to attack Emperor Yi, but they were all killed by Emperor Yi in the end. What? This kind of conversation appeared in almost every place at the same time, on every occasion. Before this, many people did not think that Yi Chen would win the battle with Emperor Xianxiang. However, the truth was that Yi Chen had killed 3 emperors thrown powerfully. The impact was terrifying to the Central Plains. Countless people in the entire ancient, desolate realm were shocked. They could not believe it. In an instant, Yi Chen's name spread throughout the entire ancient, desolate realm. It was like a monstrous torrent that crashed into everything. As for the Great Yin Dynasty, the Great Qi Dynasty, and the Demon Region, the Haotian Sword Palace was dead silent. Half a day ago they were still supreme sections. Even the patriarchs of ordinary sects had to be respectful when they saw them. However, with the death of the sex tree, they were completely knocked down to the mortal world. Countless forces that had been suppressed since a long time ago attacked together. This caused the 4 supreme sects to fall into internal strife, setting off a reign of terror. Countless people died tragically at the hands of their enemies. Ancient, desolate realm, extreme north. Yi Chen stood on a huge mountain and looked into the distance with his hands behind his back. In his eyes, there was a huge city with no end in sight where the mountains and rivers met. It was like an ancient beast that was hiding half of its body deep underground. Magnificent, mysterious, dignified, the huge city was extremely solemn and dark black, giving off a heavy and oppressive feeling. There was a terrifying formation around the city that protected it tightly. Endless dragon energy flowed through the veins of the earth. As expected of the North Sea Dragon subduing Hall, Yi Chen nodded lightly. Then, he moved and arrived outside the huge city in the blink of an eye. At that moment, several figures with terrifying auras approached from afar. Who are you? How dare you barge into my North Sea Dragon subduing Hall? Several auras blocked Yi Chen's way. The leader was a withered old man with an old face. He faintly exuded the aura of a 9-revolution martial saint. So, it's Imperial Lord Yi. The man glanced at Yi Chen and was stunned at first. Then, he took a deep breath in and said, "May I know why Emperor Yi suddenly came to the North Sea Dragon subduing palace?" As soon as he said that, the expressions of the powerhouses behind him changed. There was shock in their eyes as they looked at Yi Chen. Was this monarch Yi who had killed 3 emperors throne realm cultivators? Yi Chen clasped his fists and smiled politely. "Everyone, please forgive me for coming so suddenly. I just want to see the North Immortal Palace Master. I mean no harm. Please inform him. Not to mention the fact that he had no feud with the North Sea Hall Lord. He couldn't just barge into the North Sea Dragon subduing hall because of Shi Qianhan." The withered old man frowned, and a strange look flashed through his muddy eyes. "I'm sorry, Emperor Yi, you've come at a bad time. The hall master isn't in the city right now." "Not here." Yi Chen was surprised. "May I ask where he went? When will he be back?" The withered old man shook his head expressionlessly. "The hall master has always been unfathomable. How would we know?" Yi Chen said again, "Where's Shi Qianhan?" The withered old man said softly, "Young Master Shi has also gone out with the hall master. Emperor Yi, you've come at a bad time." He had no intention of inviting Yi Chen into the city for a chat. The people behind him even looked at Yi Chen warily. "Forget it, I've disturbed you." How could Yi Chen not tell that the group of people did not welcome him? He smiled lightly and turned around to leave. After he left, someone could not help but ask, "Grand Elder, didn't the hall master return a long time ago?" "Why? Don't ask too much." The withered old man turned around and looked at him deeply. He said thoughtfully, "This was personally instructed by the hall master. The ancient desolate realm is about to change. If our North Sea Dragon subduing hall moves, the hall will be destroyed. Southern ancient desolate realm, Great Xia dynasty." The general guarding the city said to Yi Chen politely with cupped fists, "Emperor Yi, the emperor has gone out with the princess. They're not in the capital. Why don't you come another day?" Yi Chen turned around and left without saying a word. Southern ancient desolate realm, Great Qin dynasty. Qin Jian looked at Yi Chen with a complicated expression. He shook his head and said, "His Majesty hasn't returned since he went to Mount Tangwu." Yi Chen's expression gradually froze. The North Sea Hall Master was not here, the Great Xia Emperor was not here, and neither was Ying. Other than Qin Jian, everyone else's words were almost the same. Was he not here or unwilling to see him? Looks like Di Xianku was right. Yi Chen's eyes flickered unnoticeably. Apart from the Great Qin dynasty, these few forces all participated in the operation to annihilate the ghost ship. Moreover, they seem to know some secret and are unwilling to see me. At this moment, a thought suddenly flashed through his mind. Could it be that the North Sea Hall Master, the Great Xia Emperor, and the others all had soul-sealing chains like Di Xianku? What exactly is it that makes so many emperors' throne powerhouses so afraid? Or rather, it could be said that they are afraid? Yi Chen's frown deepened as he thought to this point. The only thing I can do now is to make a trip to Jixiao Academy. Saving my parents is the most important thing. As soon as Yi Chen returned to the Jade Lake Sacred Land, Xiao He came up to him and said in a deep voice, "Master, someone wants to see you." "Who is it?" Yi Chen's eyes focused. Xiao He hesitated for a moment and said as if he was recalling something, "It's a little girl. She's the little girl we met in the Origin Tower, the storyteller and granddaughter." "It's her?" Yi Chen frowned and remembered immediately. Not long after, Xiao He brought a 17 or 18-year-old girl with a birthmark into the hall. Xiao Man knelt heavily in front of him and begged with a pale face, "Emperor Yi, please save my master." "Your master?" Yi Chen looked at her with a burning gaze. "Is it the old storyteller who traveled with you last time?" "Yes, it's him." Xiao Man nodded repeatedly and said while still in shock, "He and Uncle Master Pan were captured by Jixia Academy." "Jixia Academy again?" Yi Chen looked at her fixedly. "Let me ask you. I followed you after you killed a disciple of the Martial Spirit Mansion at night. Is the Emperor's throne who attacked me your master? The so-called master of the Sword Hut?" Xiao Man said, "Yes." There was no surprise on her face. She seemed to have guessed that Yi Chen had followed her that night. Yi Chen's eyes flashed as he said again, "Now answer my last question. Where is my brother, Yi Wushuang? If you like Evil Dad in the City, please collect. Evil Dad in the City." Chapter 1259. Brother Wushuang. Xiaoman's eyes reddened as she said hesitantly, "Brother Wushuang drew his sword towards the sky and was sent into the Forbidden Ocean." Boom! As soon as she finished speaking, the space above the Jade Lake Sacred Land exploded. Then, an arm made of lightning slammed down from the sky. That kind of power shook heaven and earth. Bang! Yi Chen lifted his head abruptly and soared into the sky. He appeared in the air instantly. "How dare you kill me in front of me?" In an instant, a golden hammer shook the heavens and the earth as it charged towards the lightning arm. Under the intense collision, the latter collapsed into countless bolts of lightning. This string of sudden and unexpected events came and went in a hurry, and it was as if everything was like a dream. Whoosh! At that moment, a figure landed next to Yi Chen. It was the Patriarch of Hell. "Fellow Yi, who was that?" His expression was extremely solemn. Obviously, he had also noticed that something was wrong. "Heavens, he is the heavens!" Before Yi Chen could speak, he saw Xiaoman curled up on the ground. She stared at the air and her face was extremely pale. Brother Wushuang was punished by heaven for drawing his sword at him. "Heaven?" Yi Chen scoffed. "Does he deserve to be called heaven? It's just a fake heavenly Tao constructed by a powerful being." "Not bad." The Yellow Spring Patriarch's eyes shot into the sky as he nodded slightly. "It doesn't look like the heavenly Tao. Otherwise, fellow Taoist, you wouldn't have broken that hand so easily with that strike just now." At this point, he could not help but look at Yi Chen. "Fellow Yi, looks like this world isn't as simple as we thought. It doesn't matter if it's simple or complicated. Today, I must find out who is above the ancient barren world." Yi Chen scoffed. "It's just a fake heavenly Tao. Why should I be afraid even if the real heavenly Tao descends?" As soon as he finished speaking, he waved his sleeve and immediately sent a spiritual energy seed into Xiaoman's body, and then he said, "You're saying that Wu Shuangtian drew his sword and was sent into the Forbidden Sea?" "Yes." Xiao Man was still in shock. "My master and martial Uncle Pan have been hiding from it all these years." Yi Chen said again, "Why did Jixia Academy take them away? What does Jixia Academy have to do with that giant hand?" Master said that Jixia Academy is the representative of heaven in the human world. It's responsible for restraining the people of the world and preventing them from being ignorant. Xiao Man bit her lip and said word by word, "And the head of the academy is the inspector in charge of supervising the world." I understand, I finally understand. Countless thoughts flashed through Yi Chen's mind when he heard that. No wonder Di Xianming has the soul restraining chain in his body. No wonder a mere ghost ship can make so many peerless sects take action. No wonder the North Sea Hall Master and the great Xia Emperor avoid the ghost ship like it's a taboo. So these people are afraid. A cold smile appeared at the corners of his mouth. I'm afraid of Jixia Academy and the so-called heaven they speak of. With that thought, he suddenly turned to look at the Patriarch of Hell. Patriarch, do you dare to come with me to this so-called Jixia Academy? The Patriarch grinned. Just do it. In year 3651 of the primordial era, Yi Chen led the Patriarch of Hell, the 9 Condor Luan, and the rest out of the Jade Lake Holy Land. They rushed to the most central place in the central state, Jixia Academy. At the same time, in the North Sea Dragon Subduing Hall, the purple-clothed North Sea Hall Master stood at the peak and looked in the direction of the central plains. A man wearing a bronze mask knelt on one knee in front of him. Hall Master, Emperor Yi is already on his way to Jixia Academy. I estimate that he will arrive in the Central Plains within 4 hours. Did he finally find out? The North Sea Hall Master's expression seemed to be lost, but also as if he was reminiscing. Back then, the Eastly Emperor defeated the number 1 person in the world, Kuyunzi. He killed his way into the darkness alone with his sword. He only wanted to break the cage for us and create a bright world. However, he ended up dead, and his followers' souls were destroyed. Even we are shackled. Hot tears welled up in his eyes. Emperor Yi, even though your talent is comparable to the Eastly Emperor, you will still follow in his footsteps. You cannot defy the heavens. With that, he bowed solemnly in the direction of Jixia Academy and cupped his fists. To Emperor Yi, at the peak of the imperial city of the Great Xia dynasty. The Great Xia Emperor, Emperor Hua, stood with his hands behind his back and looked towards the east. I am already invincible in the human world. If I don't fight the heavens, who will I fight? Eastly Emperor, you were so powerful that you swept through the primordial era and made such bold words, but you were still unable to defeat the heavens. At this point, endless sorrow surged in his eyes. After tens of thousands of years, someone has walked your path again. He took a deep breath and cupped his fists towards the east. His words were sonorous and forceful. To Emperor Yi. In the far west, in the West Earth Pure Zen sect, a blind old monk pressed his palms together. Amitabha to Emperor Yi. To Emperor Yi. In an instant, powerful auras appeared in the various secret orthodoxies of the ancient, desolate realm. Everyone faced the east and bowed to pay their respects. 4 hours later, in the central region of the Central Plains, the 9 Eagle Phoenix, which had transformed into its true form, flapped its wings and carried Yi Chen and the rest for thousands of kilometers. It looked at the ground where the mountains and rivers intersected and said, Master, remember to treat us with respect when we arrive at the academy later. We're going to get someone not to go on a pilgrimage. Why should we care about etiquette? It's just a place where poor scholars gather. The Patriarch of Hell could not help but grab a handful of its feathers and mock. Feathered beast, have you been guarding the door for too long that your kneecaps have gone soft? The 9 Eagle Phoenix did not dare to make a sound now. Over the past few days, it had seen that the Patriarch of Hell was much crueler than Yi Chen. Father, Mother, I'm here to pick you up. Yi Chen stood in the clouds and looked down at the great rivers below. He seemed to be talking to himself, and his voice contained complicated emotions. An hour later, the 9 Eagle Phoenix gradually landed. What greeted everyone's eyes was an ancient road paved with bluestones. The ancient road led to the mountains. At the end of the road stood a piece of red bricks and green tiles. It was like a mirage hidden in the sea. It was surrounded by a righteous aura, making people want to worship it from the bottom of their hearts. Let's go. Yi Chen carried his daughter and took a step forward. He stepped onto the bluestone path. The longing for his family grew stronger. Along the way, there were old apes hanging upside down from cliff. They held scriptures in their hands and spoke in human language. There were foxes that transformed into humans and used seduction techniques to seduce the scholars on the way. Those who could not resist the temptation were instantly sucked dry of their yang energy. After walking out of the mountain gate, Yi Chen lifted his eyes and looked at the Holy Land in the hearts of all scholars in the ancient, desolate realm. Yi Chen suddenly sank his dantian and shouted, "I'm Yi Chen. I'm here to visit Jixia Academy." The flawless chapter of The Genius Nanny in the City will continue to be updated on the mobile game bar. There are no advertisements on the website, so please bookmark and recommend the mobile game bar. If you like Evil Dad in the City, please collect Evil Dad in the City. Chapter 1260. I'm Yi Chen. I'm here to visit Jixia Academy. In the green mountains and clear waters, Yi Chen's voice was like a giant copper striking a bell. It was vast and deafening. When the last word was spoken, the originally tranquil paradise-like land was suddenly broken. Birds and beasts scattered, and even the fish that emerged from the water took the opportunity to dive into the water. Then, the entire Jixia Academy was shaken. Yi Chen, the fiend who killed the Jade Lake Holy Master and killed Di Xianming and the other two peerless giants, was here. He had come to Jixia Academy. Yi Chen was naturally the most famous person in the entire ancient, desolate realm recently. Creak. The simple wooden door in front of everyone was gently opened, and a group of people rushed out. Most of them were young men and women in robes. In an instant, the entire Jixia Academy was filled with people. All of them looked at Yi Chen and the rest. There was shock, respect, sneer, and hostility. He's the infamous Yi Chen? He's nothing much. I thought he had 3 heads and 6 arms and could swallow the sea and the moon. Someone looked at Yi Chen coldly. Apart from sneering, his eyes were filled with hostility. He looks elegant and extraordinary. He doesn't look like a heinous person at all. Instead, he looks like a modest gentleman. Some of the Academy's ladies looked at him with admiration. Yi Chen ignored everyone's gazes and continued walking into the mountain gate with his daughter in his arms. Stop. At that moment, a young man in a green robe took a step forward and stopped Yi Chen in an unfriendly manner. This is Jixia Academy. Outsiders are not allowed to enter. Yi Chen looked at him quietly. Who are you? I'm Jiheng, a third-generation disciple of the Academy's Confucian Academy. The green-robed young man looked at him arrogantly and said arrogantly, Yi, I know you're lawless in the outside world, but this is Jixia Academy. How dare you be so rude? Yi Chen said, Get your adults to come out and talk to me. You think you're worthy. Jiheng could not help but sneer. Bang! Before he could finish, a large hand suddenly reached out from behind Yi Chen and lifted him up. Little brat, who are you talking to? The Yellow Spring Patriarch stared at him and grinned. You claim to be a scholar in Jixia Academy, but are all scholars as arrogant and disrespectful as you? Jiheng's face turned red as he was lifted into the air. Many young men and women surrounded them when they saw that. They glared at Yi Chen and the rest. Let go of senior brother Ji. Everyone stop. At this moment, a powerful voice suddenly came from behind the crowd. Then, a scholar in gray walked over slowly and steadily. Martial Uncle One. Greetings, Martial Uncle One. Seeing the person who came, the crowd that was filled with righteous indignation immediately made way and retreated to the side. The middle-aged scholar glanced at Jiheng, who was lifted into the air by the Patriarch of Hell first. Then, he fixed his gaze on Yi Chen. Emperor Lord Yi, you once said that you came to pay a visit to my Jixia Academy, but now you're attacking a disciple of my academy. Isn't that a little disrespectful? His tone was slightly cold. Yi Chen's expression did not change when he heard that. He said, Who are you? The middle-aged scholar said proudly, I'm Wen Han. My name is Extraordinary, and I'm an elder of the Confucian Academy's Discipline Hall. Let him go. Yi Chen turned around and glanced at the Yellow Spring Patriarch. After the latter let go of Jiheng, he looked at Wen Han and said, Elder One, are you trying to stop me from entering the sect too? Elder One said expressionlessly, Emperor Lord Yi, our academy has a rule. Under normal circumstances, outsiders are not allowed to enter the academy. Yi Chen squinted. There was a hint of displeasure in his eyes. Are you forcing me to barge in? The eyes of the Patriarch of Hell and Xiao He instantly revealed ferocious glints. Elder Wen's expression changed slightly as he said, However, there are naturally exceptions for people like Emperor Lord Yi. If you want to enter our academy, you still have to complete 3 conditions. Tell me about it, Yi Chen said. First, Elder Wen smiled lightly, our academy is filled with scholars. We don't like martial artists. Therefore, if Emperor Yi wants to enter, you have to cripple your own cultivation base, including the people behind you. Xiao He was furious when he said that. Old thing, what did you say? Yi Chen stopped him and said without changing his expression, Continue. Seeing that Yi Chen did not have much of a reaction, Elder Wen seemed to have gained confidence. He said again, Second, Emperor Yi needs to choose one of the 5th-generation disciples of our academy to engage in a literary battle. Only those who win will be qualified. Yi Chen said calmly, Literary battle? That's right, literary battle. Elder Wen said in disdain, You can choose any one of the 5th-generation disciples of our academy to compete in poetry or painting. As soon as he said that, the surrounding Jixiao Academy could not help but laugh out loud. They looked at Yi Chen with gloating eyes, but most of them were filled with disdain. In the entire ancient barren world, no one could compare to Jixiao Academy in terms of poetry and songs. Yi Chen remained silent. Elder Wen glanced at him proudly. Third, after completing the first 2, Emperor Yi still has to kneel 3 times and kowtow 9 times on the stone steps to enter the sect. 3 kneels and 9 kowtows? The Yellow Spring Patriarch laughed out of extreme anger. Of course. Elder Wen was completely unaware. Our academy teaches the world with poetry and books. We respect ancient etiquette and pay attention to the difference in status. If you want to enter, you naturally have to pay your respects to the saint. Fellow Yi, do it. Why waste your breath with these poor scholars? The Yellow Spring Patriarch suddenly looked at Yi Chen. His eyes shone brightly. Yi Chen crippled his own cultivation base and challenged them to a literary battle. It was obvious that he was deliberately making things difficult for them. How dare you? Elder Wen's complexion suddenly changed. Those who block me today will die. Yi Chen's gaze was cold. He took a step forward as a divine gleam flashed through his eyes. The pressure on his body was like a mountain pressing down. Plop, plop, plop. At that moment, many Jixiao Academy disciples could not withstand the pressure and fell to the ground. Their faces were filled with shock. Even Elder Wen spat blood. He was pressed to the ground as if he was prostrating himself before Yi Chen. How dare you? How dare you act violently in my academy? Almost at that moment, a few figures shot out of the self-study palace and headed straight for Yi Chen as if they wanted to stop him. Some held scriptures and stirred up wind and lightning. Some picked up a brush and drew, causing the weather to change. Some played the zither and penetrated the void. I don't want to kill, but why are you forcing me? Yi Chen turned his head around abruptly. His eyes were cold as monstrous killing intent surged out, causing space to freeze. Blurg, 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 the powerhouses from the academy spat blood and were sent flying by his aura. They seemed to have been severely injured. If you like Evil Dad in the City, please collect. Evil Dad in the City. Chapter 1261. Quickly inform the mountain masters and deans. This brat wants to barge into our academy. We must kill him here. Some powerhouses roared. Call him. The Patriarch of Hell wished for the world to be in chaos. He shouted, It's best if you call all the powerhouses in your academy. We'll kill them all. Right at this moment, an anxious voice came from afar. Don't be rash. Under everyone's gaze, A weak-looking donkey could be seen stomping its hooves over from within the education palace. A white-clothed, middle-aged scholar sat on the donkey. The latter's expression was emotionless, and the moment he appeared, countless people in the academy revealed looks of respect. It was Grand Tutor Ning, who had parted ways with Yi Chen not long ago. Tong tong, tong tong, Meng Ming's eyes lit up when she saw the donkey in Yi Chen's embrace. She kept waving at the donkey. "Greetings, Mountain Master Ning." Everyone, including Elder One, bowed to Grand Tutor Ning in unison. "Mountain Master Ning, you came at the right time." A powerhouse shouted, "This brat wants to barge into our Jixiao Academy. Please inform the other mountain masters and deans to suppress him. All of you, step down." Grand Tutor Ning's expression was calm. He waved his sleeve gently and looked at Yi Chen. "Fellow Yi, it's been a month since we last met. You've really surprised me." "Greetings, fellow Ning." Yi Chen retracted his killing intent and cupped his fists. He had a good impression of Grand Tutor Ning. The latter had helped him in the Dali dynasty before, and he was also related to Qianqian and the rest. "I already know why you're here, fellow Yi." Grand Tutor Ning nodded slightly and raised his eyes to size up the Patriarch of Hell and the rest behind him. He said, "I can bring you in, but I'll only allow you to be alone." "Master," Xiao He wanted to say something but hesitated. Yi Chen interrupted him and looked at Grand Tutor Ning. "Sure, I'll listen to Grand Tutor Ning." After saying that, he turned around and said to the Patriarch of Hell and the rest, "Patriarch, wait for me here for now. Without my permission, don't act recklessly." "Don't worry." Patriarch Yellow Spring's eyes glinted. "If you encounter any unforeseen events inside, just let me know, and I'll immediately charge in with my men." As he said this, his eyes occasionally wandered between Elder One and the other people of the academy. Countless people glared at him. "Let's go." Yi Chen carried his daughter and followed behind Grand Tutor Ning. Nobody dared to stop him. Clearly, Grand Tutor Ning had a high position in the academy. After the two of them entered the mountain gate, numerous simple and unadorned pavilions entered their eyes. The heavens and the earth were filled with boundless righteous energy, and it seemed to cause one to be unable to help but feel reverence from the bottom of their hearts. Yi Chen said as he walked, "Fellow Ning, do you know why I'm here?" "Of course." Grand Tutor Ning's gaze was calm. "After I returned to the academy, I learned that the academy had taken in a middle-aged couple." "A middle-aged couple?" Yi Chen's heart skipped a beat upon hearing that. "The moment I saw that middle-aged couple, I thought of you, fellow Yi." Subsequently, Grand Tutor Ning looked at him and said, "Alike, the three of you are too alike." Yi Chen suppressed the excitement inside of him and said, "Fellow Ning, I wonder how my parents are now?" "Good, very good." Grand Tutor Ning smiled faintly and said, "Your parents received preferential treatment in my academy. When they had nothing to do, they also comprehended the Saint's Tao. Now they have a Confucian cultivation base." The boulder that had been hanging in Yi Chen's heart for a long time finally dropped. He could not help but ask again, "Before my mother was separated from me, she was already pregnant. I wonder if she's now." "That's your brother." Grand Tutor Ning suddenly stopped and looked at him quietly. "A year ago, your mother gave birth to a brother named Yi Xing for you. The Chancellor personally gave him the Xianyuan name." "Yi Xing, Xianyuan?" Yi Chen mumbled to himself, "Yi Xing, Yi Chen, Xingchen, that's right." Grand Tutor Ning nodded slightly and said, "Your brother's innate talent is very good. When he was born, he had the 8-armed god avatar on his back. He could walk on his own when he was only half a year old. When he was a year old, he could pull a weeping willow." At this point, he could not help but smile and say, "Therefore, the older generation of the academy laughed and said that your brother isn't a scholar. Instead, he's a natural martial Tao genius. That's why he's called the Little Martial Saint." "Is my brother really that outstanding?" Yi Chen could not help but smile. Perhaps it had something to do with the fact that he had secretly used medicinal pills to train his mother's body, causing his brother's innate talent to be outstanding. At this moment, the group arrived at the valley. There was a small bridge, flowing water, and smoke curled up from chimneys. There were strange flowers and plants everywhere, as if they were in a paradise on earth. In the valley, there was a relatively simple courtyard. There was a vegetable field in the courtyard, and many vegetables were planted there. Grand Tutor Ning stopped and said, "Go in. This is where your parents live." Yi Chen's eyes moved, and his heart could not help but race. He took a deep breath in and walked slowly into the valley. He had been separated from his parents for more than a year. Now that he was about to reunite, his feelings were self-evident. Grand Tutor Ning's calm eyes suddenly became a little wet as he watched Yi Chen walk into the valley. "Fellow Yi, I'm sorry." Almost at the same time, a dozen old figures appeared in front of him like ghosts. The white-clothed old man in the lead had white hair and a ruddy face. His gaze was cold as he said, "Mountain Master Ning, your mission is over. Leave the rest to us." Dynamo. Grand Tutor Ning stared at him. "Fellow Yi is only here to look for his parents. He's not an enemy of our academy. Don't push him too far. Otherwise, even if I have to risk my life, I won't let you off." "Of course." The gray-haired old man snorted coldly. "We have no other choice. This kid is lawless and has a terrifying cultivation. If we don't restrain him, what will we do if he wantonly slaughters in our academy?" With that, he led the dozen or so people toward the valley. Grand Tutor Ning sighed faintly. "Fellow Yi, you shouldn't have come to Jixia Academy." In the quiet courtyard, the fragrance of grass filled the air. Yi Chen stepped into the courtyard and scanned his surroundings. Eventually, his gaze landed on the vegetable field. At that moment, there were many vegetables such as cabbage, coriander, and some taro. "It's taro," a smile gradually blossomed on Yi Chen's face. "Looks like Mother planted it specially. She knows that I like to eat taro roasted chicken." His gaze wandered around, taking in every blade of grass and tree here. Then, his gaze fixed on the simple courtyard in front of him. "Father and Mother should be inside, right? And my 1-year-old brother." His heart skipped a beat. He did not dare to extend his divine consciousness in to investigate. Instead, he took a deep breath in and walked in. "If you like Evil Dad in the city, please collect. Evil Dad in the city."